What's going on, everyone? Welcome to the Seasoned Gaming Bitcast, episode 259. I am your host, Ainsley Bowden, and we are back with your weekly show covering all the biggest topics in gaming with this illustrious crew you see sitting in front of you. I'm going to start with the Michigan man himself, the Michigan man. Michelin man? Michigan's better than Michelin man, I think. The Michigan man.
Man, terrible.
I'm the Michelin man.
Really bad.
Body-wise.
Mr. Hoeg.
You can
Hoeg
confuse
himself.
me for either. It's all good. Happy to be here this morning.
How you doing, man? Doing all right?
I'm doing okay. Played a lot of fun games this week.
Good.
Did a lawyer just make a sweeping statement that gave Michelin the right to use his likeness indefinitely? Is that what just happened?
No. Good try, though.
You said you could use me for either. I don't know. That seems
confuse me for either.
Oh, confuse you. Okay, got it. All right.
Travis just heard use you and he jumped. He pounced.
I was like, let's do it. Let's Michelin. Let's get on this.
Somebody else is about to get blacklisted this morning.
I told you. His three names is just Travis spelled three different ways.
Yeah. In case
you know who's never asked me for a quote? Travis.
I've never asked him for a quote. No. It's just, I feel like there's better sources.
Oh my god! And of course,
I don't write. I don't write stuff like that. That's the real answer.
Yeah, fair enough. You've basically introduced yourself at this point, Mr. Tie Guy. How we doing, bro?
Sorry, I can't keep my mouth shut. I'm a mouthy. I don't say that. But yeah, it's a good time, everyone. Good to be here.
And of course, the man, the myth, the seven himself, Mr. Rodriguez. How we doing?
I'm here, man. I'm ready to go. Is that a denim shirt, Travis? Because I'm liking it.
No, it's not denim.
No, it's not denim. You should get one. I don't know.
More or something.
I just feel like that would fit you.
I'm gonna get super like you guys are just gonna see a different part of me, but this is actually herringbone. For those who don't know the stitch pattern, it's pretty cool.
Nice.
He's not a hipster. Don't say it.
Don't
say it.
Herringbone cotton, I believe.
Does it have like the little Alan Wake professor patches on the elbows?
You know,
it's got his initials on the cuff.
I'll be honest. I have a couple jackets that have leather patches, and I never really understood it until I actually had them there, and then I was like, dude, these are super handy because, like, you know, you'll be on like the subway and you post up on something. And you're like, oh, that's got like a sticky kind of tactile feel. It kind of gives me some grip on my elbow. Pretty useful. So I wish I had it on more, but I don't have it on nearly enough.
And that was your sartorial corner on the Gaming Bitcast.
Sartorial corner. We have been all over the place lately, and I never thought I would talk about tactile grip on an elbow. So we're off and running.
It's important. Look, it's not important, but it's more important than you'd think. Like, you know,
I always think of it as professorial. So
there you go.
Well, we have we should have a fun show for you today. We're obviously going to be talking more about our experience with Remnant 2 because all of us have been playing it, and this is a game that I think we want to talk about. We have some other games that obviously we want to talk about there. We've got Final Fantasy XIV coming to Xbox, along with Phil Spencer showing up at the Final Fantasy Festival in Vegas. We're going to talk about that. And PS5 has surpassed 40 million units sold. To want to talk a little bit about that and where their future is. We got gameplay previews of Armored Core 6, Lords of the Fallen. A lot going on in the gaming world. But before we get to anything, we have to settle something, guys, because we have a serious problem amongst us.
We usually do.
We usually do. This is more serious than most. You know, this is not elbow tactileness. Okay. This is Dan feeling like Christopher Nolan is a bad director, and that just can't stand. I don't know how we move forward from here.
Hold on, let me say something first. I never said he was a bad director. I think his movies are super overrated. He's a poor writer. Can't make a character actually more than two-dimensional if he tried. And I think people just watch it to feel smart. Any of his movies, except for Memento. I really enjoy Memento, but also that's kind of based on a book. So, yeah, I'm gonna kind of.
I like that Memento is the one that you don't watch to feel smart. One of his.
No, it was just a better film than most of his other ones that he's done. I would say
it's a strong movie. I mean, like that's how he
got
his
career.
That's how he got well known.
It's a great movie.
Yeah, I mean, I like.
I would argue the Batman movies.
Nolan.
The Batman movies are the least pretentious, though, right? Like,
I mean,
Yeah.
on the spectrum of comic book movies, they are by far some of the most pretentious comic book movies ever made.
Very specific genre. They're,
But I like Christopher Nolan, so I'm gonna back him up here. Certainly, as a director, I think he is one of our best. I think if you want to sell a 3-hour historical biopic, Christopher Nolan was the guy you wanted to do it, because he films that like an action movie. He does all sorts of interesting things that keep you paying attention for the full 3 hours. I didn't love Oppenheimer, and part of that is because I think he gets caught up in his framing devices. One of my favorite games to play with Christopher Nolan is when he announces a project, trying to figure out how he's going to mess with time in order to tell his story, because if it doesn't interest him, he's not going to do it. So, Dunkirk has its various time elements. Oppenheimer has 2 separate framing devices that reference each other. It's that kind of thing. And I agree with Dan that some of that is, hey, I like to have a prestige. Like, he really does. He likes to have a reveal towards the end. In Oppenheimer, it's a specific conversation I go back to 4 times, and it's always waiting for that final explanation of what was said so he can use it as the last line of the movie. And I think it gets away from him. I think the framing in Oppenheimer, as for instance, goes for about a half hour too long. That the very end of that movie is just the framing devices resolving themselves. And it's like, I don't think that was a great setup. And I think you can argue that his screenwriting tends to get into a kind of M. Night Shyamalan addiction to a very specific framework that is justified to be criticized. And I do think it's designed to make you feel a little bit smart while you watch it. But as a director, he gets tremendous performances out of his actors, and he does interesting things and speaks in a visual language when so many of our directors don't even bother. And I really think that it should be said that Christopher Nolan is one of our best directors.
I wouldn't put him up there with like Spielberg or Scorsese or anything. Not even close. You know,
Scorsese. You want to talk about somebody who gets stuck in their own ruts?
Yeah. But the thing with those guys is that they can tell the story through the characters and have that story build and create the world inside of that movie without his interjections. It's like, this is what I want to do. This, and credit to the actors, because a lot of times they do an amazing job with what they've been given. Heath Ledger, for example, despite Nolan, he produced one of the best acting performances of all time, I think, but that's not because of Christopher Nolan. That's because Heath Ledger is awesome, and I don't know, man. I watch these movies like if you even say Tenet was good, I really can't be your friend, because it wasn't.
I like Tenet a lot.
God, what is wrong with you? What is wrong with you? I can't even figure out what's going on in that movie.
That's why we like it.
It's designed to make you watch it twice.
That's not that. No.
I've actually been waiting to watch it the second time. Like, I have it sitting here and I just haven't.
It's designed to make you watch it twice, because the beginning of that movie doesn't make any sense.
The whole thing doesn't make any sense. You can't even name your character in that movie. It's just the protagonist or the producer. It's just. Come on, man.
There's a long, rich history of movies that don't name their characters for a reason.
Yeah, what was the reason?
It's actually a whole genre.
It's because
there's a reason in that one. That's part of the reveal.
No.
Have you ever seen Fight Club? That character doesn't have a name either. It's kind of a thing.
Which one? It's Tyler Durden.
There's only one Fight Club, right?
Well, Tyler Durden has a name, but he ain't real. Sorry, guys. Spoilers.
Spoilers.
What's the name? What's Edward Norton's character's name?
Also, Tyler Durden. I don't know.
Actually, no, it's not.
I've only watched that a couple of times. Listen, I'm just saying. Yeah, I think people will, as soon as they see Christopher Nolan's name on it, automatically, like, for some reason, like, I think Tenet, I think he made that to see like how many people would be like, let's see if I just make this completely bat crap piece of garbage and throw it out there, and then we can watch it. Let's see how many people will be like, this is a masterpiece, and it happens because his name's attached to it. Like, it's too much cachet with his name. I think it just needs to stop. Make a good movie, Again, Memento.
I'm all for being against cults of personality. I just think Christopher Nolan is an actual gifted person.
And I think you don't think he's earned it. I mean, obviously the Dark Knight trilogy kind of sits aside of his other movies, but like Interstellar, Inception, you don't care for any of that.
No. Interstellar, I mean, here's the thing. He's like, here, this is what's coming out of my brain. Okay, I'm going to give you all these weird time things and da-da-da-da-da. All right, it doesn't make any sense. like actual sense. Like
Interstellar?
scientifically, it doesn't make any sense.
If anything, I think
You know,
the
but
Coen
there's a
but-
lot of
brothers-
there's a lot of
No, it does
astrophysicists who
not.
disagree with you, Dan.
And there's a lot of
about
them that say this is complete garbage. Makes no sense whatsoever.
I like Interstellar a lot, but I mean, I would say if there's a problem with Interstellar, it's that he lampshades what he's doing way too early. You're way ahead of that movie if you're paying attention.
Yep.
Oh, it's terrible.
I mean, I don't think
Interstellar is not terrible.
There's another, you've got Matt Damon, you've got Anne Hathaway, wasted characters, in my opinion. Casey Affleck, who is an Oscar winner now, wasted character. He's just a guy that's in the background. He's terrible.
So Matt
at that.
Damon is pretty key to Interstellar. You
He's-
might want to watch that one.
I'm not saying he's not key to the story. I'm just saying he's wasted on just this his role. I don't think it was written well. I think it was pretty much hot trash. But that's just me. And everybody's got different things. And I just never feel like I get out of a Christopher Nolan movie. And now let me say something. I have not seen Oppenheimer yet because I refuse to go to the theater to see it. Mostly because of my feelings for Nolan. But all right, I feel like that movie and like Memento and stuff that had any kind of like prior Dunkirk, based on an actual battle. Like
Oppenheimer is based on both a man's life and a book about that.
Book.
It's based on a book, yeah.
Right. So he's got that material before he goes into it. Like when he doesn't have to like really go super far and get deep into the weeds, his movies actually are all right. I don't mind them. Like Inception, I mean,
I didn't
talk
love
about their
Oppenheimer.
action scenes. I don't even know what the hell you're talking. He is the worst action director ever. I mean, just terrible. And people are like, "Oh, this guy is so good." I'm like, "What are you talking about? This is the worst action scene I've ever seen." Inception had the worst. That movie for me, I mean, I watched it probably two times, I think, maybe three, and I'm just like, this is dumb.
I think Inception would be stronger if that third act action was better. I'm going to agree with you, Dan.
Yeah, it was.
But I like Inception a lot.
I love Inception.
Yeah, I know it doesn't.
Inception's great.
Yeah.
Well, I'm
sorry.
Listen, my favorite movie is Big Trouble in Little China. So what does that say? All right, I love that movie.
That's a great movie.
It's a good movie.
Of all time for me.
It's a good movie.
So my opinion doesn't mean anything. I'm just.
I don't think John Carpenter is that talented.
No, he's not.
That's a great movie.
It's a great movie. But with that being said, different strokes. It's fine. You guys do whatever you want to do. I just can't stand the guy.
Look, all I can say, Dan, is I did Barbenheimer yesterday, and I had a good time.
Nice.
It was fun.
Yeah.
2 good movies.
Did you like the piece we talked about? How they covered that at the end of Oppenheimer? That we were talking about in DMs. I don't want to say it out loud. Well, I guess it's not really spoilers, but it happened.
Yeah. I had less problem. Look, I would have liked if the movie focused more on the McCarthyism part of it. It kind of was very focused on one person, which is fine. I mean, it's a biopic. That's exactly. That's kind of what they were going for, but. I was satisfied with it. I didn't think the reveal was that bad. I knew the reveal because I've read history and knew that character and what his relationship was with Oppenheimer. So that wasn't a surprise. But I thought it was very well for a movie where you're just hearing people talking. It's like smash cut, different conversations, jumping around in time, which is one of my least favorite things in movies is when they obfuscate the timeline just to make things interesting. But for that type of movie, that movie went by super quick for me because I was just really into it, and 3 hours was like that. And then I watched the Barbie movie, which also was really good, but even that movie, it dragged in places and it felt longer to me, even though it was less than a 2-hour movie. And so he's very skilled filmmaker, I think, and I really like the movie more than Hoeg, I think. So I tend to agree with.
It was okay. I got to the end and said maybe I should have seen Barbie, but there you go.
Yeah, you probably would hate Barbie. Well, actually, I don't know. I don't know.
I really liked Oppenheimer.
Maybe you'd like.
I really liked it.
I'm gonna watch it. I think
Greta Gerwig is talented. I don't have a problem saying that either.
I think it was for what I had no expectations of what that movie would be, and it was.
How about Barbie on track to make $1 billion?
Yeah,
that's crazy,
dude. Mattel announced 14 more movies this week. I mean, that's nuts. They're gonna make just movies for everything. Uno, I guess, is getting a movie. I don't know, man.
What?
Yeah, they announced a whole bunch of movies because Barbie was so successful. They're just doing a whole bunch of stuff now. Yeah.
All right.
Mattel, dude.
Okay.
They're going to be next Marvel. Get ready for the
Sorry if I
MCU.
disappointed anybody this morning.
M
but,
stands for
yeah.
Mattel.
You're allowed to not like Christopher Nolan, Dan.
Yeah, fine. I've known about this horrible secret of yours for years. It's fine.
Yeah, let's not get started
We'll
with
move
like
on.
Tom Hardy or anybody
Move
else.
on. No, we're moving on. We're moving
Terrible.
on. All right. So a few shout outs before we get into what we've been playing here. So shout out Vintage Willow. Thank you very much for the 10 gifted memberships over on the Seasoned Gaming side of the house. Super, super appreciated. Always very generous.
Definitely.
Thank you for that. Chris Mullen became a member on Seasoned Gaming as well. Thank you, Chris. Appreciated. Brentwood Chic did 10 gifted memberships over on the Hoeg side of the house. So thank you for that. Always very generous as well. Thank you very much. I will remind people, I saw a couple comments from, Chris Mullen also gifted 5 memberships on Hoeg's channel. So Chris, thank you very much. A lot of generosity to kick us off this morning. Appreciate you. I will remind everyone there are comments, from members that don't pop up over here. So they're hard to find sometimes. So sorry about that if you say good morning. And of course, we'll kick off with our early morning Google Men super chat.
Oh, geez. Oh, my God.
I like this one because I think it's a Remnant comment. It's always,
It looks like it.
I try to guess what Googleman's talking about.
Yeah, it's our Google Men puzzle.
I can't even pronounce half this crap. Jean Baudrillard's.
You don't pronounce the L's. Baudrillard.
Yeah, well, okay. Do I pronounce this L or is it simulacra?
Simulacra.
No, you say those L's. That's
Right, I
English.
say that L? Okay.
Simulacra.
I can also say the L and simulation, which I'm reading. This guy, I love Google, man. God, he's the best. The part of the homework the Matrix cast got from the Wachowskis Oreo double stuff. Hey, guess what? The Matrix, better movie than Inception. There you go.
No.
Yep.
I like the Wachowskis.
Yeah.
But
I do too.
They haven't been as strong and consistent as Christopher Nolan.
I'm not a big fan of all 3 of the Matrix movies.
Of course.
All 3? You looped in the first Matrix movie?
I do loop in the first Matrix. I can't get on board with Keanu Reeves as a protagonist. He's just I like him as a person, but his acting really bothers me.
I also agree that Keanu Reeves has gotten a little bit extra credit for apparently being a nice guy when he doesn't bring a ton to his role.
I think that's
do
probably
like
fair,
look.
but he's awesome.
I've met him. I've met him. He's a very nice guy, but he does nothing for me on camera, unfortunately.
Your humble brags notwithstanding.
Yeah, I've met him, but
that's not a humble brag. That was just a brag. Come on, I own it. But there was no humble.
I was hanging at Keanu's house this one day, and he was talking about
he's nice too.
Oh man, Googleman, thank you as always for your early morning super chat. All right, let's actually talk about some games, boys. So Remnant 2, we had a long conversation about Remnant 2 last week. I don't want to spend forever on it this week, but I do find it interesting because there's not a lot of games, first of all, especially I would say maybe in the AA space that all 4 of us play, that Travis also reviewed. That is a game I would typically say Dan and maybe even Hoeg to some degree wouldn't normally play as well, actively anyway. Probably Dan the most. But it seems we've been talking all week about this game in our private chat, and we've all been playing quite a bit of it. So, Dan, I'm going to start with you, just kind of put you on the spot here, because this is some people call it a Souls-like. It's not really.
I said that last week, and having played through it, I agree with you.
It's got a couple elements, obviously, of that formula, but I mean, it's not like, you don't, for instance, I guess the biggest one that would separate it is when you die, you don't drop all of your scrap, right? You don't have to
collect your souls.
Yeah. And there's, it's kind of a weird mix of different games, but that withstanding, how are you doing with it? You were worried about the difficulty. You were worried about kind of liking the setup of the game, but it seems, anyway, based on our conversation, you're really digging it.
Yeah, so it's fun because my son and I are playing it at the same time, and when we
co-op or just parallel?
He's playing on the PC. I'm playing upstairs on the console, and he's so he'll come in and we'll sit there and talk about it for like 15 minutes every day, and he'll be like, yeah, this is what happened with me, and that's completely different than what I've done, which I think is really cool. And it's cool that they incorporated like kind of different, even bosses. He's like, yeah, I got through this boss. All I had to do was like shoot a deer. I'm like, what? You know, and while I was sitting here struggling with, you know, and I say struggling, but really, I'm on the base level, whatever Survivor or whatever it's called.
I think it is Survivor.
Okay. And I had some problems with the first world boss. I've actually had more problems with like some of the mini bosses.
Nightweaver for you?
Nightweaver. Yep. And that's because I wasn't prepared for the second round of Nightweaver. After I knew that, it went much easier, and I figured out a couple things. Now, and then the other world bosses that I've fought, I've either finished them in the first try or the second try. I haven't had a lot of problems beating these guys, and so I'm like, man, I thought this would be a little bit harder.
It's generally a very fair game.
Yeah,
when you're allowed to play the game,
right?
We'll get there in a minute.
Yeah, and now the problem, I am what I believe is the final area, and this is one of my pet peeves with any game. When you have like an artificial difficulty spike, like all of a sudden, like it just went from, okay, I'm having a good time. It's challenging, but it's, it seems pretty fair. And then all of a sudden I get to, like, I don't know if it's a mini boss or something. And I'm just like, man, this thing is turning it up. I'm like, okay.
Is it the one that has empathy?
Or
is it earlier than that?
It's
Root Boy.
It's one, yeah. That was the first Root Boy. Yeah. Well, yeah. So and then, but I finished it. I was like, all right. And then I get to another area, and I was like, man, this is getting harder and harder, just getting from point to point. And then I got to a boss last night, and I was like, this guy, it probably took me 10 times, and I still haven't finished it because I'm.
Does he fly around?
Yes, he does. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. So
he's
that
a Spider-Man villain.
That boss is definitely like a skill check before the final boss, because what they do is they give you a normal-ish enemy. It's an enemy type you see before, but they give it a perk called empathy, and empathy is a trait where if you use your dragon heart, the enemy also heals from a dragon heart. So basically you have to beat the boss without healing yourself.
Yeah, that's really hard. So yeah. I mean, but the thing about that is, you could build up to it a little bit better. I think I just didn't feel like I was going from level to level, and I was kind of paying attention to what my power level was, and it was really low at first. I mean, it was like 4 or 5 for a long part of the game until I started leveling up my secondary archetype, and then I think I'm at 11. I think now. I think the level calls for 13. Technically, it's kind of arbitrary, but I was finishing level 9 stuff and with a level 5 power level. So I mean, I'm not sure how much that matters.
It does matter, but yeah, it's supposed to be slightly above your current power level the whole game. So whenever you first enter a world for the first time or an area, it rolls that difficulty according to your power level when you enter it.
And then I went back to Yisha and to get the summoner build and do a bunch of other stuff, and I missed so much stuff. Like I can look at my map and they've got little question marks in little areas that that you haven't got to yet. I'm like, man, I didn't even know that existed. I said, what the hell's going on? And how did I miss that? I say that to myself quite a bit.
Back up 1 second.
Yeah.
So when you look at your map when you're in a level, obviously it's red, right? And you kind of fill it all in, and there's levels and different hidden areas you can find. But you just said question marks. I don't think I've ever seen a question mark.
The question marks are in the overworld map, and they show up when you're traveling. Once you've cleared an overworld level, they'll show up to show you like all the different points of interest with like little bubbles that you missed, and those are optional side quests.
When you're fast traveling.
Yeah, so it'll show you the question mark on the checkpoint that you can fast travel to?
No. They'll show the checkpoint on the ones you missed, like the bubbles that aren't filled in on the map. But I think it only populates when you beat the overworld.
Yeah, so like if you go to say
the boss of that world.
Yeah.
Well, there's 2 overworlds in every instance of the game, and so one of them is like you go through an overworld and there'll be a mandatory dungeon with the boss at the end, but it's not the world boss, and then you get to the second overworld, and then so every time you clear an overworld, you clear the unskippable objective. Then when you fast travel and you look at the overworld map, you'll see that there are now bubbles to acknowledge all the side quests that you either completed or didn't. And if you got to those checkpoints, you can fast travel to them. And if you haven't, there'll be a little empty bubble with a question mark, which will just tell you that there's more stuff to discover that is connected to that overworld.
Gotcha. Okay. Thank you.
Yeah. I mean, and I mean, I'm having a good time with it. I wish there was a little bit more like a steady build up where you had to, you know, I don't know, man. Like, I just feel like as soon as I got to that last boss, the empathy thing that you said, Travis, it was, I mean, it's rough, man. I mean, it's just like, that's what I expected a Souls-like game to be like, a boss. And I never really saw that throughout the game. There was a couple spots that were kind of like, oh, that's kind of tough, you know, and then there was, you know, a couple of them I was like, that was it. That's crazy. But like, for the most part, I think there's one on, gosh, I don't even know where it was, to be honest with you. Maybe it was the Labyrinth. I fought some monster that had like 4 arms with like swords, and they kind of spin around and he throws his arm out.
Oh, that was Yesha.
Is that Yesha? Okay, that was
many faces. Yeah.
Took me, I think I got, the first time I fell off the side of whatever, and then the second time I basically have that gun you get with the Nightweaver, and I hit it special and got underneath.
Such a good gun.
I mean, it's ridiculous. I mean,
it's actually a special and go. Brrr.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, you just sit there and all of a sudden it was dead, and I was like, wow, that was really, really, really easy. But it was still fun, and I enjoyed it because I was actually making progress. And now I feel like I've hit a huge difficulty wall, and it's really kind of bumming me out because I know I'm really close to the end.
You are. And this is the final skill check before the final boss. And
yeah, I can't really skill checks prior to that.
I can't really. So it is interesting because your skill checks are kind of dependent on which storylines you get and bosses you end up with. And I think you know, maybe some of that has unprepared you, but I think the thing I can't really speak to is I've never played on survivor difficulty, so I don't know how much easier the rest of the journey was up until this point. And it's possible that just the difficulty scaling when you get to the final world is a little off. I tend to believe this game wasn't optimized for survival difficulty in mind, would be my guess. So I can't really speak to that, but it's interesting. If you need help, you know, holla at your boy. I'll join in your game.
Yeah. So Elu reviewed it for us, who's in the chat. He said you're right near the end too, Dan, like Travis said. But me and him and his brother have been co-oping, and it's been a lot of fun. Yeah.
Oh, also, I should mention, Dan, if you fight that boss in co-op, the boss loses empathy for some reason. I don't understand why. So that frees you up to heal without drawbacks. So
I had no idea that was because he looked similar to like another. You know, kind of a lead.
He's basically just a regular other enemy, but he has some special moves. But his main perk, empathy, is what makes him hard. It's kind of like a little bit of a troll. Like, can you beat this boss without healing yourself, more or less?
Yeah, I probably cannot.
I recommend equipping healing, regeneration. Healing over time doesn't count. It's just when you use Dragon Hearts. So I recommend equipping your loadout to just be
use the roots. The roots and the what are they, concoctions or whatever they use?
Yeah, the concoctions you can use root for healing over time, and then you can equip the summoner subclass to gain the regeneration perk over time.
There you go.
So there's things you can do to make it a little easier for you. Yeah.
All right.
Which is really kind of the essence of that is very Souls-ish in the sense of you'll hit walls all the time, and you just need to take a step back, rethink your build and what you have at your disposal, and you can almost always overcome you know, what's in front of you. So all right, Hoeg, you said you had some gripes as well. How are the cubes treating you nowadays?
I do have some gripes. Oh, the cubes are still there. I hate the cubes. I mean, the cubes, which is this boss / puzzle encounter thing in the middle of the labyrinth, is gimmicky, right? Like, it's one hit kills if you let this thing slam into you, but you can knock over the sides of the cubes in order to sit in the holes. But the collision detection isn't awesome on Remnant, so it'll still sometimes drag you around the corner, regardless of whether or not you're ducking in the hole or not. And ultimately, it's about knowing where you have to stand while things are fired at you, and you face off against these geometric cubes. But, I mean, understand, I've had a million cognition tests in the last 6 months, many of which relate to boxes and unfolding them and making spatial things. And I've never been good at spatial. I'm worse now. And these are just like little logic problems rather than playing Remnant. So you talk about skill checks. I'm okay with skill checks and gatekeeping and things for actually playing the game. This is a dumb little thing that they thought was real smart. And essentially, I don't feel like playing the game anymore. It's the Christopher Nolan of bosses.
Oh,
No, I'm gonna pass
didn't
out.
have to go that far.
So what's funny about this, and Hoeg and I have talked about this offline, but that this is my favorite boss in the game. It's also maybe my favorite boss in any game. Like I really like this boss. It's super cool. It's basically you get trapped in a maze and there are cubes moving throughout the maze that are trying to crush you, and you have to fight the maze itself. Like you have to shoot the blocks chasing you in areas of the maze as you walk around it. And it's one of those ideas that is just super unique and feels like a Souls boss. And I really love this encounter. And I was surprised to hear Hoeg didn't, because I was like waiting with anticipation for Hoeg to get to this part of the game, because I was like, dude, he's gonna love this, because Hoeg loves unique ideas. And lo and behold, he's like ready to quit Remnant 2 over it, which is
pretty much
the terrible outcome I was not expecting. I really
I liked it. I didn't think it was incredible to your level, Travis, but I liked it. I enjoyed something different, you know, that you had to kind of figure out. It took me, I died right at first, like shooting stuff, and I'm like, oh, okay. And then I just started running through the maze and figuring out where I could stand.
It's just it's such a unique idea for a boss. Like I just was really in love with how I just never seen anything like that in a game. I was like, that's cool. Great idea.
I don't think the controls of Remnant 2 are as technical as needed to do a boss like that.
I am with you. Remember, I said in our DMs that this game is like, I love it, and with about 10% of anger. And there's very little things. I was talking to Elo about this. There's just little annoyances to me about the game that get to me at times, and that would be one of them. Like it's very polished for what it is, but it's not like to that level that you would be used to playing in like a third-person shooter, like a AAA third-person shooter. It's just not there, and little things annoy me.
What are the specific little things?
Well, like Hoeg said, sometimes you'll go to move and it just feels a little. It's like not as quick as you would expect. I really dislike the Resident Evil like run, which is like a slow jog as well. That drives me crazy. If you're gonna make a character run, okay? Don't just pick up pace by like 4%. The other thing I hate is like it doesn't load actions well, like a normal shooter or action game would. So for instance, if I'm shooting and then I hit X to reload and then left bumper to use my heal, right? It'll just ignore that I hit left bumper. It's not fast like that. It's like I have to reload.
Wait for you to
wait.
To
then I have to hit left bumper. Then I have to wait. And obviously the healing delay is by design, right? It takes a second to heal.
Yeah,
but
that's a long process.
It's a long heal, and you can get rings and other things to make it faster, but which is cool. I'm fine with that. But the loading of the actions isn't as precise. And again, this is coming from someone who plays competitive shooters all the time, so it might just be an annoyance to me. But those little things annoy me, because when I'm in the heat of the action and I'm trying to spin around and there's bullets and enemies everywhere and I'm hitting buttons and they're not doing what I want them to do, that drives me crazy. Also, am I crazy or can I not lock on to an enemy? Like
you can't. But it's
it has
shooter.
a soft
Why would
lock.
you? Yeah.
Why would
it definitely soft locks?
Yeah, I mean the camera it has aim assist, but yeah.
Yeah, what shooters do you have lock on for?
Well, I'm thinking of it like because you don't have to be a shooter, right? You can be full melee if you want. And so you think of it, play it like a third-person action game. You can usually lock on to things, or at least have some sort of targeting.
I mean, I like my plasma sword, but I'm still going to use my guns. So.
Yeah, I think the melee you can build into it, but I think their version of melee is like you swing and it hits everything in a 180-degree arc, pretty much, so far as I can tell. Like you're just going for, and you stagger everything. So yeah, my fiance did a melee build for pretty much the entire game, and she was just like, yeah, it's great. You just run up to things and you hit one button and everybody just gets.
There's a lot of like rings and perks that build into it for sure. So, but like I said, no, I really love the game. There's just these minor little things that annoy me.
I like
at
the
times.
worlds. I like the stuff that they're doing with them. It's a pity I won't see any more of them.
You'll get through that, boss. I'll help you. What platform are you on?
I am playing on my Xbox. But
perfect.
It would not be an enjoyable experience to just have Travis drop in and defeat the cubes for me. It would not be.
I can give you the trick. I don't know if you caught my comment yesterday, but when you spawn in, there's a hallway to the other end of the door, and the door's locked, right? It's got that like haze on it. You can't get through because you have to beat the boss. If you cut through and then you get to that doorway, right? Turn around and back into the doorway. As long as you're holding back, the cube will roll on that square and it won't hit you. I literally just stood there and shot everything, and the cube will come literally up to your face, but it doesn't actually hurt you.
I found places to stand. It's not that. It's just.
But I mean, you don't have to move.
I'm not enjoying the experience, so I got better things to do.
Yeah. Fair enough.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Fair enough.
It's crazy.
Well, that's Remnant 2. If you want to hear more about the Travis's review, our review, and kind of more detailed comments, we had a long discussion last week about it if you missed that. So you can check that out. But I want to talk about some other games that we've been playing because other stuff came out. I also super excited about Baldur's Gate 3, which comes out next week, but we'll get there. But I wanted to ask you guys what else you've been playing, because I know we talked Pikmin 4 briefly last week. I don't know if that's still been in the rotation for you guys. As well as I'm curious, and I realize this is more of a family or kid-focused game, but did anyone pick up Illusion Island by chance on the Switch? Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Illusion Island is much better than I thought it would be.
I was super excited about it. I know, like I said, it's a very kind of entry-level type of Metroidvania from what I hear, but
you basically don't fight anything. It's a navigation type game, but whereas Castle of Illusion, which is what I thought the reference was to as a kind of spiritual successor to way back in the day, Castle of Illusion is like a Super Nintendo Genesis era Disney animated Mickey game.
Awesome game.
Illusion Island is set up like a Metroidvania rather than levels. So it's got a big open world, but rather than fight things, you just are collecting navigational powers. And it's really well done. Everybody in the crew, it's a 4-player cooperative game, so you get Mickey, Minnie, Goofy, and Donald get the same power but differently represented. So you get a wall jump and Mickey gets a pencil to jump off of, and Goofy gets a fork and that kind of thing as you go through the game. My kids absolutely were having a blast with it. It's got cute little cartoons to tell the story that are very much like the current Mickey shorts that have a lot of good humor in them. It's a fun world to explore. It's really a lot better than I thought it would be, and I highly recommend it for anybody that is interested in that kind of exploration type game. My daughter said it reminded her of a game that she really liked called I think it's I'm gonna get it wrong, but it's like Yuka's Express. It's the pinball bug game.
Oh yeah. I know what you're talking about. I don't remember the name either.
Yeah,
I'll look it up.
Yuka something Express. I'm missing the middle word. But Illusion Island is great. I've also been playing Spirit Hunters. We referenced it a little bit last week.
It is Yoku's Island Express.
Okay, Yoku's
Island. Yoku's Island Express. I like that game. Little pinball beetle who delivers mail.
Yes. Yes, and when you die in Illusion Island, you become a piece of mail, and the rest of your crew has to find a mailbox to revive you.
Okay.
Just like in real life.
Yeah, I mean, it happens.
I haven't tested it out, but sure.
Try sliding a corpse into a mailbox. You won't be disappointed.
Yes. Well, I highly recommend Illusion Island, especially if you like the current kind of model of the shorts. It's very well animated. It's very interesting to look at. It's fun to play. It's very responsive platforming. Just don't expect to attack anything, like ever.
Yeah, that's kind of interesting. I heard that too, and I was like, that got me down a little bit. But I didn't expect this to be this high skill level Metroidvania, right? It's not made for that. So
I don't think you really even notice it that much because for the most part, platformers have you jumping on things, and you're just not jumping on things. They're just all spiky. But it's a lot of fun. It's a good game. It's another good addition to the Switch lineup that I've been playing. It goes with Pikmin 4, and as I've been playing Pikmin 1 remastered in order to earn the right to get up to Pikmin 4. We'll see. My daughter is playing through Pikmin 4 right now, so I have to go earn it because I couldn't remember enough of the plot points from the first 3 Pikmin. So
plot points in Pikmin.
Yes. You got to remember who Captain Olimar is, where he's at, whether he got off the first planet, who Louis is, this kind of thing. There's tests at Hoeg House.
All right, fair enough.
Which type of Pikmin have ears? Which ones have noses? It's a whole thing.
Pikmin lore, as we call it.
Pikmin lore.
You mentioned Spirit Hunters, which Elu, who reviewed Remnant for us, also reviewed Spirit Hunters last week as a kind of, what do you call it, roguelike horde survivor genre. Vampire survivors is obvious, the cultural reference at this point. But how are you enjoying that?
I like it quite a bit. I mean, it's vampire survivors with a few different ideas, right? So, I mean, like, that's what we expect, is that genre kind of becomes an existent one, is people exploring different concepts. Spirit Hunters lets you pick which kind of upgrade you're going to make to each power, and I think that's cool. And then it has a kind of skill tree that you use the various resources that you get from every playthrough to figure out when you're going to get levels and characters and things in a way that's maybe a little bit cooler than Vampire Survivors, but it's the same kind of game. If you've played Vampire Survivors, you know the experience you're going to get, but it is fun. Much like Vampire Survivors, I do think you can get a little over the music just because you're in the same space for so long.
Sure.
But it's a good game. I find myself playing it much like Vampire Survivors for 4 sessions when I had planned to play it for 1, that kind of thing. And so I do recommend it as well. It is on the more expensive side of the Vampire Survivors pricing spectrum, so I think it's like $10.
Yeah, fair.
But that is the more expensive side for them.
Yeah, I know. It's just
those games are all running like 2 or 3 or 4.
Gotcha. And it is on all platforms, I believe, as well. So you can pretty much find it everywhere. Cool. Very cool. Travis, you play anything good that you could talk about?
I mean, I can say that I'm playing some games. I'm working on some reviews for Blasphemous 2 and the Texas Chainsaw Massacre game, which should both go live next week.
Happy days in the Travis household.
Happy days in the Travis household. Lots of gore and blood and gross. Yeah, it's very fun. Basically, my fiance doesn't want to be in the same room as me because she's like, are you doing gross body horror stuff again? I'm like, yeah, come on down to the chop shop.
Even when you're not playing games.
Yeah.
What's funny is, my brother was visiting with me the other day, and he said that he was getting in trouble for playing Diablo 4 because if you ever just listen to the soundtrack, if you're playing Diablo 4 or somebody's near it, and you just listen to how that game sounds, he was getting in trouble for it being in the other room because it's just kind of glopping of
squishy
viscera.
Squish. Mm-hmm.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I know that feeling.
Drop some headphones, boy. Do yourself a favor in that relationship. God damn. Yeah, and then I did want to give a shout out to some games I previewed. I can't talk about one of them. Damn. Okay, I'll talk about that one next week. But I can talk about the game. What is it called?
It's a good preview.
It'll come to me.
Yeah, I like it.
Some name and then Aged Through Blood. I'll look it up. It's something. It's on. I published it this week. Laika. I remembered it. I remembered it on my own. It's LAIKA : Aged Through Blood. Sorry, I have 2 previews that are going live within a week of each other, and they both have really similar names. So I was like, I don't want to say the one I'm not allowed to talk about. Okay, so it's Laika: Aged Through Blood. This is a game that you can play an hour-plus demo on Steam for, and it is a really cool, what they call a Motorvania, which is Metroidvania where you're on a dirt bike. And it kind of reminds me of like Trials HD, if you guys ever played those games, the Trials series, where you're trying to stay aloft in you're trying to right your motorcycle as you go up and down hills and ramps and stuff like that, except for it's got gunplay as well, like you are getting shot at and you have to deflect bullets with your bike's body. And then also you play an anthropomorphic coyote, a mother coyote, and it is extremely violent, the game. So there's just a lot of violence in my household right now, I guess is my point. But it's like just really adult themes, considering that you play a cartoon coyote.
You're playing coyote riding a bike?
Yeah, it's anthropomorphic animals. So like, the beginning of the game, like you're like, all right, my buddy's missing, and then you go to a place, and then you find out that it's like an adolescent dog that's been crucified with its own guts, and you're like,
naturally
sick. This game's going to be super lighthearted. You're like, what is this game? But it's really cool. The music is really good. The game plays really well, and it was just a smaller game that I played a little bit of and wrote about and want people to know about, which is really cool. So yeah, I've been playing a bunch of interesting games. I've also been playing The Expanse. I know Hoeg's been on that as well.
I did play that
game.
this week. The only reason I didn't mention it is because it was so short. I forgot to put it on my list.
It is a little
Expanse
short.
episode 1 is great. It's basically as good as any kind of Telltale game has looked, I think.
Yep, definitely.
But it is on the shorter side. So I don't know what it took me, but maybe less than 2 hours.
And did you? So is episode 2 not out, and I just have access to it for other reasons? I
didn't see it with access, but
okay.
I mean, it's possible that I hit the wrong buttons. It's not overly clear. It just sends you to the PlayStation Store.
Got it. Okay. All right.
I gotta look that up. I was curious about that one, but I've heard good things. It seemed to get decent reviews.
It's very good.
I previewed the first episode like a couple months ago. I think we talked about it on the show, and was really impressed with it as a fan of the.
I mean, I love the Expanse universe. Yeah.
Yeah, the Expanse universe is cool, I guess I shouldn't talk about the second episode because I don't know if that's out yet. I thought it was. So, yeah, cool. That game's awesome.
I was trying to look it up while you guys were talking. It looks like, oh man, I thought I saw something that said every episode releases 2 weeks after the first one, but I don't know if that's right. That's just what came up on Google. So I'll take.
I don't believe I have access to a second episode yet.
Okay,
but I'm not positive, so I won't commit to it. I played the first episode and got to the credits there. And then I didn't have immediate access to the second. But yeah. Google made it, if you don't like the proto-molecule, there's no reason the proto-molecule should be making a significant impact on this story from where it is in the timeline and who you're playing as. So.
It is every 2 weeks, by the way, boys. August 10th, episode 2, August 24th, September 7th, September 21st. And then I believe there's a deluxe edition that includes a bonus episode 6 called Archangel.
I don't have that. Don't have that. It's unfortunate.
Okay. That's cool though. I was curious about that one.
It's really
before we move on, I realized that we forgot to talk about a debate topic, not a debate topic, but a poll that we wanted to do with the audience on around Remnant, because we had a discussion yesterday in our DMs around the Archon, is it?
The Archon is the archetype in Remnant 2 that, if you don't know this game at all, is one of the secret character classes that you can earn throughout playing of the game. Now, in general, the way you get these things in Remnant 2 is there are little items. Excuse me. There are little items you can purchase that you then go and have properly blessed, and they will become character classes for the rest of your account, your game, in this space. But there are secret ones where you have to do special things. And in this particular instance, what the folks behind Remnant 2 did is they put the directions to get this class in the code itself rather than making it available to you through normal gameplay. So they said that this was essentially a commentary on the nature of reality and seeing between the lines of the code and things. And so data miners went and figured out exactly where you have to stand in order to get this archetype with the right loadout. And the debate, insofar as it was that we were having behind the scenes, is that I hate this. I hate this conceptually. I hate going outside the framework of the media in order to gain access to parts of it. Travis, I'm sure you will not be surprised to hear, is against me on this. So Travis, I'll let you advocate for your position on this.
Yeah. So
while Travis speaks, I'm going to put a poll up on the Seasoned Gaming site.
Whoa, not yet, because we're going to get a whole lot of ignorant answers. Let's debate it and then put the poll up.
Oh, please educate us.
I like the people that have only heard from me are ignorant, Travis.
Before the jury starts making a decision, let them hear the defense's case, would be my argument. All right. There's an interesting problem in game development right now, which is that you can't put anything in your game as a secret without it getting data mined, and it's a big problem, especially for games like Remnant 2 that really enjoy their secrets. And if you've played this game, you know that they enjoy the heck out of their secrets. They've got hundreds and hundreds of items and unlockables, and some of them have weird instructions and that sort of thing. And the way that some games have dealt with this in different ways. One, like Bungie spent a whole bunch of money developing technology to hide obfuscate stuff from data miners, which is kind of interesting. But that technology is very expensive, and so companies like Gunfire Games couldn't afford to do it for their game. And so in order to kind of play with the idea of, well, there's no secrets behind data mining, they hid a secret so deep that really the only way to find out how to get it was through data mining, and it became kind of an ARG type of game, which, if you don't know, it's augmented reality gaming. And this is a thing that exists in lots of looter shooters. Destiny has played around with it a lot, where they've had events where only by the community coming together and making like a big Excel spreadsheet of certain data points could they figure out how to unlock or solve some mystery in the game. It's become such a big part of live service games now that Marathon is apparently going to be a game that plays into the idea of ARG and doing stuff outside of the game and doing community driven events extremely strongly. And so Remnant 2's story is about, basically us being in the Matrix. That's kind of the premise of the game. It's got like a, we're all living in code kind of subtext to it. And if you are familiar with computers or coding at all, you'll know that the root, the main enemy, has some parallels between root code in computer coding, which is kind of interesting. And so they hid this thing in the metadata, in the data mining files, so that people would only be able to discover it by that. And it became a really cool community event where people were in Reddit and on a special Discord trying to crack this code, basically working together to try to figure out how the heck you unlock the final archetype, which, by the way, the only reason that they knew everything that was in the game, including all of the 11 archetypes, was because of data mining. And so a lot of the secrets had already kind of been pulled out of the game, unfortunately, because of data miners. And so this was one that they hid specifically for data miners, which is kind of interesting.
Well,
so anyway,
editorializing about what's really cool, notwithstanding counsel.
Yeah. I mean, you editorialized about what wasn't cool, so I would say that I'm rebutting what you said. But the debate that we were having was, is it okay for games to go outside of the confines of the medium? And Hoeg's argument was, I don't like when they do that. I just want to play my game, which I would view as an old man kind of archaic way of thinking of it, which is fine. But my point of view is, yeah, I mean, I think that when you try to tell artists what the confines of their medium are, you've already kind of taken a step in the wrong direction.
Dan's like, oh boy,
because the games medium is continually evolving. I don't think that there are defined boundaries or perimeters on what can be included. And Travis, I think you see that.
Here's the issue, right? Your logic here ends with me getting all the backstory from my Final Fantasy game from a movie starring Boromir. Okay, right? Like, that's where that goes, is you have all this extraneous bullshit that doesn't let you get what you want from the product that you purchased.
Yeah, well, that has already been happening for years. I don't
have to be for it because it happened before.
Yeah, so some people have frustration with that. I would argue that this is very different from that. They didn't hide anything that is
not. Hold on, it's buying that like box cutter that they put in that super sealed like plastic that you need the box cutter to actually access. That's what this is. It's super annoying. You can't get into that damn thing. You sit there, you like gotta find like the sharpest knife, and you just stab it a whole bunch of. It's a waste.
I don't know where to begin.
I bought the damn knife. Just let me have the knife. I don't need to buy another knife so I can get to my new knife.
This I feel like. To me, ARG stuff is super cool because what it has accomplished is the casual players who don't want to engage in it, they get the thing when the community solves the problem. They get it. And that's what happened here, right? If you didn't know about this archetype, you're completely unaffected because you find out, oh, there's an 11th archetype in the game, and then here's how you get it, and that's a super easy process for you. Or
but Travis, you're assuming here that I want to be a part of these communities or I want to have these conversations. I don't want to be on the Reddit for Remnant 2 to figure out how the game works. I don't want to be reading through your guides on IGN. I apologize.
Okay,
I don't want to go through these things.
then you don't get the 11th archetype and you're none the wiser. So what's the problem?
I'm none
You
the
are the
wiser
wiser,
because
though.
it's a multiplayer game and there's dudes rolling around in different archetypes.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you're not going to encounter those people unless you intentionally access the multiplayer, which it sounds like you're playing it single player, so it would not affect you. And there's no PvP. So it's not like you get an unfair disadvantage.
I'm not talking about fairness. I'm talking about what I like to have as part of my product. I don't want to go into these communities. I don't want to be a part of these games. I don't want to do these various things. And I don't want to have to go through a guide to figure out where to get, what is part of the code that I did purchase a license to.
Here's the thing. If they had just hit it really well in the game, you would be in the same situation because you would never get that archetype either because you wouldn't
I
look it up.
presume they would explain how to get there somehow. Right?
So I think
my
that's
point
the
is
whole
that
topic. That's
there's
the
a
whole
bunch,
topic.
there's a bunch of secret archetypes in the game that you will never find, Hoeg. And they are in the game and you don't have to go to a community to find them out, but they're just so well hidden, you're not going to find them. Right. And so those archetypes are equally inaccessible to you if you don't engage with the community. So
wait a minute, with all due respect, Travis, you were reviewing this before the community existed. You found, I know, one because you were proud of yourself. I got to believe I can find what Travis found.
I found multiple of them. I found multiple of them, and I think you will find some of them, but there's two in particular that you're not going to be able to find it without looking it up.
But if that's true, then I sit here and say, well, that's bad design. If you didn't give me enough signposts to figure it out, I'm not saying I'm a genius. I'm not saying I can figure out everything, but the goal of the game design for secrets is to lead me with the breadcrumb trail to where I can figure out for myself what's going on, not so that I can go read a Reddit post of some guy that read the code to figure out that I need to have this gun equipped in this doorway.
Yeah. I mean, it's so there's two things here. One is, should secrets be easier to find, which that's an entire other debate, because your argument, so far as I can tell, is that you just want games to be self-contained. You want all the game to be in the game without you having to go to a third-party source.
I want you to have designed a game and not just a roadmap to a Reddit post. Yes.
Correct. So in that case, you have no problem with the archetypes that you can technically find in the game, but are really hard to find, right? Because either you're not going to look up in the community or you're going to spend a lot of time trying to find it on your own, and maybe you'll succeed. But I tend to think
But that's what I do. That's what we all do when we play games. If we're not going straight to like the map with the X's on it that IGN will have, it says, here's where you find the 6 demon coins in order to access the Cave of Wonders.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And full disclosure, I hate guides. And I would never use one, right? I like to discover stuff on my own. And I think that that's totally fine. So then the question that I think that is the poll question, right? Which
it's already up. It just went live. It just went live. And it's been way too long since I've gotten to use this. So, I got to
for sure.
Come on. It's got to be up.
Yeah.
I mean, remember, it's a YouTube poll. I can't add a lot of context, right? But basically what I said is, do you enjoy games putting in secrets that require community involvement to solve?
Yeah. So and I think that's a fair way to phrase it. And I'm sure that it'll probably be like 50-50, which is fine. There's some people that just want games to be what they have been. I would call them old, backwards people. And then there are people who want to see what games can be, because games evolving in a way where they can have ARG doesn't mean that the old way can't exist as well. You can have both of those things. But I think that when you try to tell artists, hey, get back in the hole that I know you for, then you're making a pretty big mistake, I would say, on the potential evolution. It takes a little bit of experimentation, and sometimes in the wrong direction, to find new ways to break out of the mold of the medium. And I would never discourage a creator in this space from trying something weird and new. And I think ARG has proven that it extends the life of the game. It encourages community involvement, especially if it's a game that develops over time and has like a live service element to it, right? Destiny wouldn't be around probably today without some of the help it's gotten from that. And I think that it's kind of cool. So for the people who want to do it, I say do it. For the companies that don't want to do it and want to make like an older version of the medium or a more traditional game, go for it, man. I mean, both can exist, but I like that Remnant tried something new, and it is fitting that they hit it in the code given the premise of the game. Like, you guys all get that, right? That it was kind of a nod to the story in the game. Like that's kind of cool. So I don't know. I liked it.
Can I add a wrinkle here to this discussion?
Oh, please
Which
do.
is because I find myself kind of on both sides, right? I like when there's
You
secrets
would.
to uncover in a game, but I like discovering them myself, right?
Yeah.
However, I think in this case, I can't tell if I like what Remnant has done, because usually well, I won't say usually, but in a lot of cases I've played where games put secrets in or things you can discover, right? It has to do with either lore around characters, some type of storytelling, some type of thing that adds to the experience of the player who really wants to dive into that world, right? Like if you're the type of player who wants to really experience everything a world or a game has to offer, there's games that do a good job of allowing you to dig deeper, right, and learn more about that world. I think there's a lot of
I've
games that do
told
that.
you all about I Love Bees. I loved that back in the day, but it had nothing to do with gaining access to anything in Halo 2.
So that's where I was going, Hoeg, is I think the difference here is if you aren't on Reddit and you're not on Twitter and you're just playing Remnant 2, you clearly know nothing about the Archon, like we were talking about, like you said, Travis. But I think in this case, right, it's an actual fundamental class in the game, right? Like it is not fundamental. That's probably the wrong word,
Yeah, I
but
wouldn't
it
call
is
fundamental.
it's a class in the game, right? So it directly impacts gameplay potentially and limits, if you don't have it or you don't have any of these hidden classes for that matter, your options on how you approach combat in the game are different or lessened, I would say.
You did tell
right?
Danny he had to go get a summoner as part of the
So
strategy.
I think
Yeah,
that's where
that one's
I think
pretty
that's
easy
where
to
the
get.
the line can be a little drawn. Like I do like what they've done. I like the spirit of it. And I think uncovering things, secrets as you go, the secrets in Remnant in general, like killing bosses in alternate ways and things I've only heard through the grapevine, like my stepson and you guys, that I wouldn't know playing it. I think some of that's really cool, but at the same time, if I'm getting I think Hoeg's point is if I'm getting a lesser overall experience because I don't want to engage on Reddit, that probably has some fault to it as well.
So usually how it works in the ARG space is once the community solves it and a few people in the game unlock it, down the road they make it available in the game to everyone who does.
And it sounds like that's what they're doing here with the Archon,
they'll
right?
probably do that, right? Like now you have to just put on a specific loadout and go to a door in the game. But my guess is that down the road they're probably just gonna, unlock it and make it available in a vendor, or make it if you find that door you gain access to it, or come up with some alternate way. But for the grand reveal, they wanted to do something a little different, and I think it was largely successful. I will tell you this, regardless of what the poll says, and I suspect the poll will probably be in Hoeg's favor just based on who watches Seasoned Gaming and who your audience is, right? It's a little bit of a more seasoned crowd that are probably less open to the sort of thing.
Like I say, your audience, you're literally part of the show, right?
Yeah, I know.
It's
I know, but
audience.
but people, I mean, this is a Seasoned Gaming show, and it's got Hoeg on it. There's a lot of they're not my age people, right? They're your age people. And I am calling you all old in chat, just FYI. So let's do a likability.
It's fine. Some have less experience and wisdom. Carry on.
And I will say this, in the people who are playing the game and are on like in the Remnant community, they're like loving this. Like it's just been like overwhelmingly positive to the reveal of the Archon class. Like they're super stoked about it. The community had a whole bunch of fun going through and trying to figure out how to get the Archon class. And I'm actually writing a story about it today that will probably go live Monday or Tuesday, about the community that hunted it and who ultimately, the person, because there was one person who cracked it, the person who ultimately cracked it, and what the story was like, and kind of how the community responded to it. So I think it's going to make for a very cool thing. And I think it did, regardless. I think it benefited the Remnant community, because there was, a game comes out and there's a little bit of a honeymoon period, and then people start to discover some issues with it, and they, it goes a little bit down. It was just getting to that point, and then this. Cubes. Yeah, well, no, actually, no. People love that. That's just, you're weird on that one. But
love that. I love the conviction, Travis.
Yeah, I just know. I know that
the Remnant 2 fan board, and they loved it. Okay?
people loved that one, and I think even in this sample of the show, people liked it, except for you. So but it got to the point where people were just starting to be on the downcline of like, okay, here's stuff, and then as soon as this was discovered, everybody was back in love with it again. So I think it probably helped extend.
Well, it definitely
the love
generates
affair with
buzz
Remnant.
to some degree too.
Yeah, it generates buzz, and the people who are part of the community really enjoyed it, myself included. So,
well, then if that's the case,
I mean, is your logic then that I'm not part of the community because I didn't? I mean, is that?
I mean, you have said yourself that you don't want to be a part of the community, so that's why I'd say you're not part of it.
So it's not just players of the game.
I mean, yeah, you can be a player of the game, but if you're not like going online and engaging and giving that feedback loop, you're kind of just an isolated player.
Right. The overly online people like the overly online aspects of the game. I'm willing to grant you this tautology.
Yeah. I will accept your tautology without the overly descriptor. Seems like maybe it was has an agenda attached to it, would be my guess.
All right, well, super online people like super online aspects of
Or how about just the people who don't want to be a hermit when they play games and enjoy the multiplayer components? How about
Strangely, when I play a single player video game, I want to play a single player video game.
Aren't you
that?
all
It's not a
glad that I
single player
remembered to
video
bring this
game.
back
It's
up?
multiplayer. It's a multiplayer game, Hogue.
Well,
I
mean,
almost
you can play
forgot
whatever you
about this topic. I almost forgot. Aren't you
oh
glad?
man,
It's a multiplayer game. 3-player co-op.
You know, I have missed this because it has been too many weeks in a row with total agreement on too many things, and that is just no fun for anyone. I mean, who wants to just agree on everything, you know? So I have missed
it's one of those things that, like when it was announced, like I was like, what? Another class? I didn't even know there was 10 classes, let alone 11. You know, because I think I found like 2 other ones.
Well, there's like what, 4 at the open?
5 if you had
There's
the pre-order.
5 if you got a pre-order, and then you can discover
with the gunslinger. Yeah.
The gunslinger you can get, but you have to talk to Mudtooth until he runs out of dialogue.
Yeah, I did that.
Does he run out of dialogue?
Yeah, he's got like an hour of dialogue, dude. It's so much talking.
You have
to progress past the second world, and then he runs out of dialogue. But yeah,
there's one of the NPCs at the after a boss fight too that I was playing in co-op, and my buddy was like, "You need to talk to this guy. Like, if you exhaust his dialogue, he gives you an item."
Those people can talk.
And holy crap, I was sitting there for like 10 minutes just advancing the script constantly. I'm like, good God,
which
man.
world was that, by the way?
The end of, not the world boss, Yeisha? Yes, one of the bosses in Yeisha.
Gotcha.
Yeah, and there's an NPC kind of I don't want to obviously say anything, but NPC that has to go with the boss, and good Lord, man. It just went like, I swear it was endless. It just kept going and going and going. I'm like, oh,
I like their dialogue. I like their little stories. I mean, those two people.
No,
I
I think
it's like the whole game. But
Mudtooth's dialogue is actually interesting in between all the parts where they try to annoy you by making him fall asleep, and then you have to wake him up and get him to tell you the story again. But yeah, the stories are actually interesting.
We've got a Don Lionheart chat relating to this debate, by the way, so I'm going to pull this one up first.
Yeah, I'm with Hogue. Thank you, Don, for the $5. I want to buy my game and play my game. Leave me alone. Sometimes you can give or sell me some DLC. Don't hide things like that. Bad design. I'm kind of on his side also.
Y'all are some myopic fools.
Well, I mean, I paid for it. I don't want to have to, like, you know, it's ridiculous. I mean,
Travis, I don't generally like people online. What can I tell you?
Yeah. It also seems kind of pretentious.
You'll win a lot of points with that opinion, but I don't think that's,
you know.
Nolan-esque is not becoming a thing here, Dan. Stop it.
It's very Nolan-esque. You know, you keep bringing up these artists and stuff like that. It's like, listen,
I'll take it. I'm the Nolan of games. I get it. Okay, I'll take that. I'll go with that.
Terrible.
No, it actually is perfect because he's very talented, which obviously, but also super pretentious, and people don't like him. So I think that works. I think I'll take that moniker.
But Dan also doesn't think he's a great writer, so I'm not sure.
I know he's
that for your writing.
That's fine. I'll take that. I'll take Dan not liking my writing as well.
Oh no, yours is that. I didn't say yours. Oh, come on now.
Yours is more amusing than Christopher Nolan.
You think my writing is better than Christopher Nolan?
I think it's more amusing, is what I gave you.
I enjoy yours
more amusing.
much more. Oh yeah, I don't even need, like, if they were to make your.
I'm more of a Sorkin if I had to describe my writing style, but I'll take it.
Travis is clipping that, by the way.
It's like a destitute David Mamet.
We're way out there now. Don, thank you for the super chat. By the way, a really cool reference super chat that Debbie W over on Hoeg's channel gave us, I think referencing the game you were talking about, Travis.
Yes.
Laika? Is that how you say that?
Laika?
Laika? Yeah, is the name of the dog the Russians sent into space in the 60s. They had no way of getting her back to Earth at the time. That's kind of sad. Oh.
What
Great.
other gaming
Now
show
I'm
is going to
sad.
give you that level
Thanks,
of context?
Debbie W. Thanks,
Yeah.
Debbie W. for bumming me out after.
That's actually really not what happened was cool, but that's really cool context wise. So thank you for that. And then Chris, it's been a while since we've had one of these, Travis. So I know you saw this when it came in. I hope you've prepped your story. We have for audio listeners, we have a Travis emoji story incoming from Chris.
Oh,
Muller.
here we go. Hi, Travis.
Okay. All right. I'm going to gather that this is a Japanese video game or a Japanese game of some kind. I'm going to say Japanese video game. It involves a mountain and a volcano and dinosaurs, so maybe an extinction event. So dinosaurs are roaming the earth. There's a meteor, then the sun comes out and there's ghosts. Man, this is a very specific video game. What game is this? Okay. Japanese video game, maybe a JRPG involving dinosaurs.
But Exoprimal isn't obvious enough.
Is that Exoprimal?
What's the dice?
So.
Well, then what's
I
the
think
ghost?
it's just part of the game. It's got. Yeah, I don't know about the ghost part. To me,
I thought this was just making the Final Fantasy dinosaurs happy that Final Fantasy XIV is coming to Xbox. No.
I don't know. Rick in chat said Chrono Trigger, or I always forget what it's pronounced. Live Alive.
Oh,
Live Alive. Yeah.
Live Alive.
Yeah, this is definitely a Japanese video game involving dinosaurs, but the ghost part confuses me. It kind of.
Chris, who actually wrote this, says he has no idea, so I don't think it is a specific game.
Oh, really? Okay. So, all right. So I'm reading way too much into it, I guess. Sorry, Chris.
Dang it.
If you wanted a story, I'll tell you one, which is a gamer goes to Japan while he's there, and he's climbing a mountain. A volcano erupts, and dinosaurs emerge from the volcano, and they start roaming the earth. But then another meteor comes and kills them all. So we all get along, and we're all ghosts together. Good times.
Is this Transformers: The Age of Extinction? This is what was
maybe. I don't know.
Apparently
Chris doesn't know what it was, so I immediately was attaching to there's a message here. I'm trying to guess something, but I don't know.
Chris, thank you for the super chat. All right, I'm glad I remembered the ARPG. By the way, our poll is sitting; it's pretty close. 42% yes, 58% no. So some people like it, some people don't. Go figure. All right. Our main topic today is around Phil Spencer joining Yoshi P and Square-Enix president Takashi Kiryu on stage at Final Fantasy Festival, the FFF, in Vegas this past couple days. And the big announcement, of course, he joined them on stage to announce that Final Fantasy XIV, the long-running MMO that has been on PC and PlayStation exclusively, is coming to Xbox in spring of 2024. This will come launch in spring after a beta test during release 6.5X, which is, I guess, the next update coming prior to their expansion, which will come next summer for all platforms, called Dawn Trail. So the kind of very cool that Final Fantasy XIV is going to get on Xbox, another audience for a big MMO. Great to see that. Of course, the thing that's being more focused on that I want to talk to you guys about is around the statement made by Kiryu here, because obviously all of us, I think anyone covering Square-Enix and Xbox, the gaming industry, Square-Enix has been kind of interesting with the way they've delivered their games to different platforms. And they've obviously had some exclusivity deals with Nintendo, or games they've chosen to only put on the Switch for some reason. They've had exclusivity deals in some of the bigger Final Fantasy games, as we all well know, with Final Fantasy VII Remake and 16 on the PlayStation side. And so it's kind of been an outcry from the Xbox community for some time now around that, and Square Enix just generally not supporting Xbox heavily. The comment made by Square-Enix president Kiryu on stage was, and I quote, "One more thing as CEO of Square-Enix, we want to continue to deliver fabulous games to fans across the world. And of course, we want to welcome the Xbox community as well. Starting with today's announcement of Final Fantasy XIV coming in spring of 2024, and whenever possible, we are planning to bring our games to Xbox for players around the world to enjoy. We're really looking forward to working closely with Phil and the Xbox team to make this possible."
How
So
much
I guess,
money? How much money did Phil pay for this deal?
well, for 14 or for things in the future, I guess is TBD. But that's
yeah.
kind of what I was going to ask you guys on your just personal thoughts on this. Great to see Final Fantasy XIV coming to Xbox. Fantastic. I think that's great. It's one I've always wanted to jump into. I just never have. I've heard very good things about it. But I guess what I wanted to ask you guys on your thoughts is this actually turning a corner for Xbox and Square-Enix, or is this merely kind of lip service and it's going to be a case by case, show us the money type business deal in the future? What do you think about the statement? Is there any weight behind it? I guess is what I'm really asking.
Can I ask a question real quick? Like,
Of course.
did they not? I thought this was announced a long time ago. Not that. No, or was there just rumors? Maybe then.
No, there were a lot of people clamoring for it, right? They kept asking
okay.
Yoshi P, who's the director of Final Fantasy XIV, who helped with 16, of course. They kept asking him, like, "Can we get this on Xbox?" And basically, what he said
I thought Phil said something about it at some point, where he's like, "I really want to bring this to there." Or maybe I'm misremembering.
I think Phil
maybe wants to.
Phil's talked about how he likes Final
games.
Fantasy XIV.
Yeah, maybe that's what it is. Okay.
Yeah. Yoshi P said, I want to say maybe 3, 4, 5, 6 months ago, in one of the presentations they did for Final Fantasy XIV, he mentioned how basically it comes down to resources, and that, they didn't have the resources to be able to do the port because they're working on other things. And, that may come in the future. That's all he said. So this at least is the first formal announcement that it is coming. They're working on it and building that relationship.
I think Final Fantasy XIV is a very specific product from Square-Enix that doesn't have a lot of analogs to their other products, right? It's a multiplayer game of the old World of Warcraft variety with a monthly stipend and everything else. So I think there's a lot of reason to bring that over to as many consoles as you can and everywhere that you possibly can that maybe doesn't line up with Final Fantasy 16 or Octopath Traveler 2 or whatever. So I think we'd have to see more before we can say that there's a real warming of the relationship. As for money changing hands, I doubt that they had to do much more than maybe ease up a little bit on their squeeze, right? Yeah. You just take your percentage down a little bit. And Square Enix, I think, at least has been exhibiting, as far as we can tell from the outside, a little bit of squeamishness with working with Microsoft as a brand after it just didn't work out with their Final Fantasy XIII project on Microsoft and with some of the stuff that they brought to Game Pass. Like, they just weren't happy with the numbers. It didn't look like.
Right.
So I think you'll see a kind of, if you want to imagine this metaphorically, testing of the waters, right? Like just dipping your toe in, going down the zero entry side of the hotel pool very slowly. And then maybe you wind up in the deep end with Microsoft, but maybe you don't. Maybe you don't like that, how that feels. And I would suspect that it'll be very slow after Final Fantasy XIV. I think even Final Fantasy XIV is pretty slow, right? They announced it now and it's coming next summer. Like that's a weird length of time.
Yeah, spring 2024 for Xbox. The expansion is coming in summer, which will come to all platforms.
Yeah, and I like Final Fantasy XIV, and I think it's a good thing for more players to get a chance to play it. And if you're looking forward to it on Xbox, I'm totally in favor of that. But I wouldn't start signing my reservations for Final Fantasy 16 or anything else coming over to the Xbox platform until you start seeing some real movement there.
Do you think that and this is for everyone too, the way I was thinking about this, right? Square has this new CEO, relatively new CEO. He seems to be on the younger side. And obviously, as we've talked at length on this show, right, about the future of where gaming is going in terms of global market, accessibility from different devices, that type of thing. Do you think as a new CEO, he's coming in and making any sort of test wave of saying, okay, here's what we've done in the past, but with the future looking global, obviously Microsoft is on the verge of closing on Activision Blizzard and, has a lot of money and weight to throw around and a big focus on kind of global gaming. Do you think he's kind of examining this and saying, oh, we need to get past these old adages around working with Microsoft and Xbox and just move forward.
I mean, I think anytime you switch CEOs in a company like Square-Enix, there is an implied mandate that you want to go a different direction.
Sure.
Right. So, I mean, I think just reading the tea leaves, you've got a new CEO that says, okay, we should be open to doing things that we wouldn't be open to doing before. But that doesn't mean that the cultural strength of a company like Square Enix is going to stick with it, right? A CEO right now has a chance to go and try new things, and they'll have to start seeing the return on that before they really dive in with both feet, I would say. And I think the audience is going to determine that largely, right? How many people are going to play Final Fantasy XIV? It's not a new game, right? I know there's a new expansion coming out next year, but the people that really wanted to play Final Fantasy XIV, were they really holding out for it on Xbox? You've kind of got this Nintendo Switch problem, right? When you bring a Call of Duty that's 6 years old over to Nintendo Switch and nobody plays it, is that proving that nobody's interested on Nintendo Switch? Or is that saying, hey, your project, when you bring over something that's 6 years old, is maybe not that great of an indicator either way? So you've got Square Enix, which is already a mercurial company that makes, let's call them interesting choices, that is going to get data points that I just don't know that if I'm an Xbox fan, I think is going to be what drives Square to bring over everything over to Xbox. So I recommend caution, but I always recommend caution with Square Enix because they're like one of the hardest companies to predict, maybe outside of Nintendo, as to what they're going to do next.
Yeah, I think that's very fair, Hoeg. And by the way, Rick just said, and I'm not looking this up, but Rick said in our chat on the Seasoned Gaming set, he said, FYI, Dan was right. I looked it up. Phil announced this for Xbox One in 2019. It just never came to fruition.
I swear.
I kind of remember that.
I don't remember that.
I remember the issue was crossplay. Like they remember this was like years ago. Like Sony didn't want to do crossplay with Xbox, and they were like, "Well, if we have to choose one of the consoles, it's going to be Sony because they have a way bigger audience." And that was it. Yeah.
Well, Microsoft, as cash rich as they are, can't pay for an exclusive on their end, right?
Nope.
You can't kill the Sony market for a company like Square Enix.
Yeah, they actually talked about this at the FTC preliminary injunction, which was that Sony has the ability to pay companies to not put it on Xbox because Xbox's share of the market is small enough to where it's not that hard to pay to just for all the potential Xbox players. But to do the reverse, for Xbox to pay to somebody not put it on PlayStation is basically unheard of because they would have to pay,
too expensive.
80% of what that money, of what that game would make across the platform console releases for that to make economic sense. So, being the market leader has its advantages very clearly.
Why not just bring it over and put it on Game Pass? And I mean, it's a paid game, right? It's like $20, $30 or something like that.
I think it's a subscription game.
And it's a subscription, right? Well,
I mean, that's
I mean, I've always thought Game Pass is the perfect like live service vehicle, and you get it in there, people get into it, they start paying for the subscriptions, they start paying for all the
it is stuff. Importantly, Final Fantasy XIV doesn't really consider itself a live service. It is a very traditional MMO and actually one that kind of explicitly runs out of content, and then Yoshi P tells everybody to F off and not play the game for a while. And then when he comes out with content, then people play it again. So I think the model that they've chosen, which by the way, I think is a very smart model. Not everything needs to be live service. You can be a fan of something without thinking it should take over every aspect of the industry. I think that wouldn't probably make economic sense for them. Because it has its own subscription service, you're going to have to pay a subscription on top of a subscription, which doesn't really make sense. And it's also not the biggest barrier of entry for getting into Final Fantasy XIV. The biggest barrier of entry is the monthly subscription cost.
Sure.
So right now, I'd say the biggest barrier for me is having to play through a Realm Reborn again.
Yeah.
Can't take it again.
For those who don't know, Final Fantasy XIV has about 80 hours of content that you have to play through in order to get to the current content, and much of it is not good, like aggressively not good,
boring.
Yeah. It's one of those games where people will be like, dude, once you get past the first 100 hours, it's so good. And I'm just like, bro, come on, man, like I can't get on board with that. But that said, I have played a good deal of Final Fantasy XIV, and I might hop back in and try it on Xbox. I don't really know. I this is the sort of game I would play on PC, but yeah, I mean, it's good that Xbox is in on the conversation. I have my doubts that the Square Enix relationship is going to go Microsoft's way. Microsoft's audience doesn't seem to really fit the mold of the type of games that Square makes. It fits very much better with PlayStation, which is why I think that they've gravitated toward them, in addition to the fact that they're just the market leader. So I'm glad that Phil is continuing to try. He has really, really badly wanted to get into the Japanese market for many, many years, and it's never worked out for him because they're just not that into you. There's some, there's a lot of legacy with Nintendo and PlayStation in Japan. There's also some nationalism that's going on with their decision to not like Xbox, and it just doesn't. It's not a product that really speaks to that market. So,
do you guys think that it would be? It's when I see like these games like Final Fantasy 16 that are exclusive to the PlayStation, why you think it's because Sony comes out and pays them a bunch of money for that exclusivity, or do you also do you think there's any part of it that is, well, we don't want to develop for a whole nother console with like you just described, Travis, with maybe an audience that maybe won't be as into it?
It's the audience that's the factor here, right? Because it's just math. So Square looks at their math and says, how many are we likely to sell on Xbox? Mm-hmm. And their models are years old now because they've had such an estranged relationship with Microsoft. But they say, well, we're not going to sell a lot. And then Sony says, well, we could pay for those people. That's not a big number. And Sony pays for that number, right? But it's the same reason it doesn't work in reverse, because if Phil goes and says, Square, what will it cost to keep you off of Sony? They say, well, a lot. We're going to make a lot of money from selling to Sony. We're not going to make a lot of money selling to Microsoft. So one of the things they're going to test is, as Travis said so eloquently, how into us are they? And I do worry that the Xbox audience has not traditionally backed up, even on Game Pass, where there's like no additional cost to experiencing some of these really great JRPGs and other Japanese-oriented games, that you're going to get these, half-star, one-star reviews. It says not enough shooting or whatever on the Xbox. And
there's a lot of Ainses on Game Pass.
Well, there's a lot of people everywhere that don't like things, but Game Pass.
Right.
I'm just sitting here enjoying my time. I'm not even doing anything.
I text you. But that's right. Like Ames, you wouldn't click on a JRPG with a strange name on Game Pass. That's just not your thing. You don't like those types of games. You've said that on the show
nowadays. No. I think that's probably fair. I joke about it a lot, but yeah, nowadays, no, I don't dig them as much. But I don't think using me as the example here is. Prominent across all of Xbox's audience, but I do believe that the point you're making, I do think there is a point there that cannot be kind of officially quantified, right? But I believe it exists.
Yeah. So that's my trepidation here, and for Dan to answer your question, we know that that's what PlayStation does, because that's one of the things that came out in the hearing, is that Sony had to put out a lot of their business plan because they got themselves involved in a case they totally could have avoided getting themselves involved in. And it revealed to Microsoft exactly how their business model works. And one of the things Phil Spencer said when he was on the stand was, I can't remember the phrase of the person that asked him the question, but I believe it was the opposite counsel asked him a question like, so, this game didn't come to your Xbox or whatever. And he said, well, I would say PlayStation paid for it to not come to Xbox. Or it was, so they paid for exclusivity. And he said, no, they paid for it to not come on Xbox, because exclusivity wasn't what they were concerned about. It was that they didn't want it to go on their chief competitor's platform. And it was cheap enough for them to make that move because Xbox's market share is so small with that type of game. Then it was Final Fantasy 16 was the one in question.
Right. And that's the same. Yes, that's how Phil framed it. And it's the same kind of notion, right? When you talk about exclusivity, you're talking about it being exclusive to your console, not necessarily for it to be great for you, but to keep it off of other consoles. And so Phil, a little bitterly, responded that way in court, but it's really a matter of what your audience does. And Phil's got the audience he's got. And so he convinced Square to go along with this on Final Fantasy XIV because there's very limited downside for them. It's a paid product on a continuing subscription basis. But I wouldn't get excited until you see whatever the equivalent of Final Fantasy 16 is willing to make the jump. And I'm not sure that'll come ever.
Agreed.
I don't think it will. Yeah, I'm pretty worried about this not going again, not because they've tried before. Let's keep in mind, like this again, not going in Xbox's direction, because it's great that they're talking. And I love that Phil is so passionate about this, but it's just one of those things where he's up against a lot in this market, and I don't think he has the audience that's going to back him up and his passion. I will. I mean, I'll buy all these games that they're going to be on Xbox, I'm sure, but it's I'm definitely not in the majority of Xbox players. Xbox has a very, very North America slanted audience, which typically are less into that type of game. So,
well, it's cultivated. I mean, like it's all a kind of self-fulfilling prophecy, right? Those years of Halo, Gears, and Forza built an audience that primarily is interested in playing Halo, Gears, and Forza. That's how it happens.
It's the chicken or the egg. They kind of need to have those games on the platform more reliably before they can even get into that market. And that means that at least for years, those games are probably not going to perform super well until people are certain that they're always going to be there. And just, if you're into Japanese games, why would you be an Xbox main? It just doesn't make any sense. You have all the risk without any special benefits to not being on the PlayStation console.
Yeah, or the Switch. I mean, I think Square has done a good job of supporting, especially the Switch with their like 2D focused games, right? Your Triangle Strategies, your Octopath Travelers, they're all on the Switch at the same time. And they never made much sense to not come onto the Xbox, except that they didn't think it was worth their time or money. So I think the worry that I would have, as I've articulated here, as Travis has said, is that we don't know what Square Enix's institutional thought process is. And I expect that the numbers they get back early on are not going to be terribly exciting. So if you get a press release in Q3 next year that says, oh, we'd really hoped for a lot from our Final Fantasy XIV Xbox partnership, but it just didn't turn out the way we wanted, and so we're going to continue focusing on our core business lines or something like that, that's when you know that it's just not going the direction that maybe Phil Spencer would have it go, because ultimately it's where the dollars live.
Yeah. By the way, Elu points out, Travis, that your actual statement was there's a lot of Ainses on Game Pass, and he said that's the weirdest dig ever, but So yeah, I think that I mean, Game Pass has been successful. Subscribers are going up, so
Yep. There's a lot of Ainses, and that's not a bad thing. It's just like North American.
They're subscribing because there's a lot of Ains on Game Pass.
Well, Game Pass is weird, right? Like I think we've talked about it a little bit, but like Game Pass is weird because it is zero additional cost. You do get a bunch of really mean reviews through the Xbox system of games that are quote unquote free that just don't line up with what somebody wants, right? So you do have what I will colloquially refer to as the Call of Duty players roll into Chained Echoes and be like, what the heck is this cartoon nonsense? And why are we turn-based fighting? And it's like, well,
there's also,
you clicked on it, sir.
I can also say this as somebody who writes for some games that appear in Game Pass. In fact, I'm reviewing one right now. The Texas Chainsaw Massacre game is a Game Pass game. There are people who come in and write those reviews because the game is on Game Pass without having played it, because they hate Xbox and they hate Game Pass and they just want to shit on the game. And so you also get some of that. You might get review bombed by people who hate Xbox and just don't want Game Pass to succeed.
Life's too short, folks. Come on now.
I know, for real, dude. I'm like, how do you have so much hate in your heart and so much time as well to just like make that your thing? But I know it happens because I see it, dude. Like if I post anything, sometimes it won't even be a Game Pass game. It'll just be some game that's bad, and the top comment for like 15 comments long will be, "This looks like a Game Pass game," or coming to Game Pass in 2024. Like when I gave like a 2 out of 10 this year, right? Like those are the comments that we get. Like people just are really, really angry at Game Pass existing for whatever reason.
Wow. Which is really strange because I mean, it's literally measurable, the quality of the games. Like if you're talking about review scores specifically, it's measurable, the games.
It's also consumer friendly. It's like them,
I mean, like there's nothing to be mad about.
It's like, it's like people being mad about, Netflix existing. And it's like, all right.
I was just going to say, it's like I subscribe to Disney and I review bomb everything Netflix puts out.
Yeah. Like, and they're just like, Blockbuster still's got the quality though. They still got the quality. You'll never understand. It's just like, what? Come on, man. Who are you fighting
like
against?
This is what you've chosen to do with your life.
Yeah.
Oh man, good times. Well, I guess we'll segue over to PlayStation on that note, which is they announced this week. Jim Ryan made a statement on the official Sony blog that PlayStation 5 had surpassed 40 million units sold through which obviously hugely impressive. PS5's been crushing it. If you go back and look at the data, which I did this morning, it was faster than the PS4 for some time, and it's kind of dipped very slightly, but it's pretty much neck and neck with the PS4. And they actually, based on the projections, expect it to outpace the PS4 kind of in the arc, if you will, beginning later this year, winter of this year. Which, if you think of the fact that we had supply chain shortages for quite a while, right, and lived through a pandemic, is incredibly impressive. So PlayStation has very clearly kind of carried that momentum from the PlayStation 4 generation that they were so successful with into the PS5 era. No matter what has gone on, seemingly, in our community that we've talked about, whether it's Jim Ryan's bizarre comments at times, the stuff with Activision Blizzard, and Jim Ryan, I would say his general unlikableness, it doesn't seem to negatively affect the global market for PlayStation 5 as we speak. I guess the question I wanted to ask you guys is more of just a broader thought topic or conversation point. Is we've talked a lot here about their strategy for the future and how much they're investing into live service. And we talked a couple weeks ago around how Sony as a company is investing more into PlayStation as a brand and as a game development than some of their other things that they invested more previously from a company perspective. So do you think that there is a significant risk to the success of PlayStation by investing a large chunk of their revenue back into live service development? And why, if you do?
Nah. That's my answer. They'll be fine. Look,
Moving on.
Look, all right. So here's why. PlayStation has utter market dominance. I don't think they're in any danger of losing it. I don't think that, though they are investing in live service, I don't think that that's necessarily competing with their investments in large, big budget single player games that will continue to be successful. There's also a huge amount of the market that just want single player games, want nothing to do with multiplayer. Some of them are on the panel, and I think that those will continue to. I think that those will continue to be extremely profitable and successful for PlayStation. What they're trying to do is expand their success, and I think that they may or may not be successful at that. And regardless of whether they succeed or fail, they will continue to be the dominant player in the space for the foreseeable future. That's what I'm kind of guessing on this. So I don't think I think it is a gamble, but I don't think it's a particularly risky gamble. I think they'll be fine. So
my hope continues to be that we get more novelty out of them, that live service chasing gets more different types of games. I'm watching the Peacock show Twisted Metal and remembering some of the glory days of PlayStation when they would try weird things.
Oh, we're going to talk about it.
Okay, we'll get to Twisted Metal. We'll get to Twisted Metal. I will say I like it better than Halo, so we'll go from there.
I mean, that is such a low bar to clear. That tells me nothing. It could be Citizen Kane, or it could be a 2 out of 10.
I'm actually enjoying it more than Last of Us, but we can talk about that too.
Whoa, that's more spicy. That's more spicy.
I like it.
Damn.
Yeah, I mean, we'll get there, but
We'll get there.
I miss when it was Twisted Metal and Colony Wars and all these things. And yes, I'm an old man shouting at a cloud and whatnot, but they're so invested in third-person open world action adventures that I gotta believe that not every live service project they're doing is some variant on that theme. So if they got new stuff to try, including Twisted Metal as a live service game, that would be cool.
It would be so good. It's such a good, yeah.
Don't get me started. I've ranted about wanting a Twisted Metal kind of live service battle royale style game for a long time now. I don't know how we don't have it.
And you were the best. Yeah, it doesn't make any sense. Yeah, do it.
Yeah. So I mean, I've missed that. I've missed that vibrancy, and so I don't think that it's a bad thing if you're a gamer watching this money go in that they're putting it into a different bucket. Is that a risk? It's a risk insofar as it's not triple the budget for God of War 4 or whatever. But I really don't think that was going to make the difference between whether or not the products coming out of the Sony PlayStation first party were good or not. So I don't view it as a problem from the gamer side of things. If you're an investor in Sony, maybe you got a little bit more to worry about.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny you say that, actually, because James Pingle, shout out James, who is a regular listener of ours. He's usually not here with us live, but he comments a lot on the YouTube video, and he left a long comment as being a Sony investor. and he had concerns around it in the sense of, from a company perspective, their investment almost not wholeheartedly, but a significant majority percentage of their investment going towards PlayStation as a brand had him concerned. So he just put some thoughts out about that. It was a pretty insightful comment.
My guess is that most investors are super stoked about the investment in live service because they're seeing the numbers coming out of the live service. I'm guessing that they're like, oh yeah, let's.
Easier said than done, as we
investors chase like companies chase.
Yep.
So
very true.
Gross.
Some
Very
people
true.
made some money during that, though. I have no doubt. Yeah.
How much of the, I mean, yeah, from a first party perspective, for me, I'm just, it doesn't really, toot my horn, but you've got NBA 2K, you've got Madden, you've got FIFA.
Didn't like that.
I mean, you've got all these other, third party IPs that are bringing in all kinds of money, live service. I mean, do they supplement that? What they're doing with live service with that cash flow? I don't know, like all the breakdown, the specifics of what they're bringing in.
Crap ton of money into live service.
Yeah, billions.
That's the only data point you need, really.
I just don't, when I think about it, I mean, we say this all the time, but we always represent a very small portion of the actual gaming community, and the stuff that we talk about is very, it's a very specific, section or subsection of this community, and I think most people are just like, I play 2 games. I play COD and Madden, or FIFA and 2K, and that's it. And they spend hundreds, if not thousands of dollars, a lot of these people, on whatever it is that they buy through these games. So, I mean, I don't know how much, what the percentages are and all that other stuff, but I think people just, I don't know why it just seems like PlayStation seems to be that, like, it's almost like Nintendo used to be, where like the old people would be like, hey, nice Nintendo, and it's actually like a PlayStation 2. It just becomes that it's synonymous with like, hey, you got a PlayStation? Actually, it's an Xbox. Oh yeah, same thing. Most people, they have no idea. And I think that's kind of, oh man.
I keep did you see a comment in the?
I just saw. Yeah, I just saw.
Wait. This comment we're gonna leave on for the rest of the show.
Mike,
is that where Dan lost his wind?
Thank you.
Mike, you literally stopped Dan in his tracks and made him forget what he was talking about.
I mean, I appreciate you. We love you having you here in the chat. And
wow, that was really.
That's all I'm going to say, because
he's a pro. He's a pro.
Yeah,
he is a pro. I'm way meaner to a commenter, so I'm just like, I don't need you. I don't care. Wow. I don't make money off of this.
Go watch it. Yeah.
Oh, anyway,
I mean, I agree with Dan that a lot of the PlayStation brand power gives them a certain amount of buffer from what we would consider the normal risks of the market, and I think that the fact that they're investing in the market is good for gamers. You want them to still have their desire to invest money, and Microsoft putting all their money in, I think, helps to drive all of this. Are all those products going to be things that I want to play coming out of the live service spend? Almost certainly not. But my hope is that those projects are varied enough that one of those is, that's the one that Hoeg is going to want to play, and we'll see. But I know for a fact that I don't just want to play God of War and Ghost of Tsushima and all of those variations until I die, right? I don't want the PlayStation 18 to just be giving me those games. So if they want to try some new stuff, I'm all for it. Does that mean I'm going to jump into Marathon and it's ARG Reddit wiki thing? No.
But no, I think I think that's the case, right? The audiences are vast too. They need to be able to support things across. It's kind of what Travis was referring to with Game Pass, right? Like, you're going to have a lot of people like me who are playing Halo Infinite every week, but there are people who are clicking on Chained Echoes. You need to have that breadth. I think having a breadth on all platforms with different types of games is important. So I'm with you that I'm looking forward to their experimentations and seeing what they come up with. I think the biggest thing I hope is for originality. I don't want to see a PlayStation Call of Duty. I don't want to see a PlayStation.
If they pop out like a battle royale or a hero shooter as like
Overwatch, please do something unique.
I'd be like, bro, this is not what the doctor ordered.
No, for sure. Okay. Couple big games coming I want to talk about, only because we got like extended gameplay previews this week for them, which is Armored Core 6 and Lords of the Fallen. Now, Lords of the Fallen doesn't come out till October, but we got an 18-minute gameplay preview, which I only saw the trailer of. I didn't watch the whole thing because I am completely sold on this game, so I've gone dark on it at this point in time. And then Armored Core 6, we saw a narrated gameplay preview, and that comes out in just 3 weeks or 3.5 weeks, which is kind of amazing to think. But either of these games, I mean, these are two of my most anticipated games for the rest of the year. But either of these two games interest you guys, and to what level? What do you think of these gameplay previews? Hit me.
I'll probably be getting Armored Core, but it's never been my favorite series.
Okay. Did you watch the preview from this week?
I did. I mean, it was on the discourse basically throughout my timeline. So yes, I did see some of the preview footage of the game. I mean, it looks fine. I think From has obviously increased its popularity since the last time they made an Armored Core, but it looks like it's going to stick with the Armored Core ethos, and it's just not my favorite game.
Big Travis is giving us the.
Sorry, I was typing a response, so I was on mute. Go ahead, Travis.
Yeah, I'm excited about both of these games, and I think everybody should. I think everybody should keep it tuned to IGN. We have a whole month long of coverage of over at IGN First that starts tomorrow for a game that we haven't announced yet. Who knows what game it'll be?
It definitely doesn't have anything to do with this conversation.
It could be any game, but I'm
like
excited for both of these games.
Something like that. Yeah, it's got an acronym.
I'm excited for said game and its month long of coverage. No, I enjoyed both of these previews from my coworker Mitch, who did both of these games, I believe, the previews for him. I'm guessing, and I can't say anything. It is. I'm excited for these games. I'm excited for them, and I've seen some of it. Yeah,
I'm kind of like Hoeg. I'm excited for Armored Core. I really don't know what the hell that one is. The other one is. So Lords of the
It's
Fallen.
a Souls game. Don't worry about it.
Perfect. All right.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't like Lords 1 that much. My recollection is that it was fine.
But it's completely.
Yeah, Lords
different.
1 is pretty bad, but I think Lords 2 is.
This is a different team. They've put like 6 years of dev into this, a much bigger budget. It's completely different.
Also, that team, I believe, they worked on the Surge afterward, right? That was their.
Oh, yeah.
I don't remember.
I think their learnings from the Surge and the Surge 2 are. I mean, those games are, I think, great. I really
Surge like great game.
Lords of the Fallen 2 is made by the Surge people. I like the Surge.
I think that
it's not Lords of the Fallen 2.
I think they went Lords of the Fallen, and then they pivoted and did the Surge, and then the Surge 2, and I think now they're circling back around. That's my understanding. I might have the
CI Games. I'll look it up real quick, but
yeah, please do. I don't want to be wrong here, but I kind of remember that in my brain being a thing, so I think that's right.
Yeah.
But whatever. The team clearly got better at Souls-like games.
I like the Surge, but I would also kind of characterize it as fine.
Somebody's telling me Surge people are working on a different game, so yeah, I guess it is a different team now. But
yeah, the new Lords of the Fallen. I have to look it up, but it's got an interesting history, basically.
But am I right that the old Lords of the Fallen was the Surge team? Is that correct? Because you said it's a different team now that's working on.
The 2014 Lords of the Fallen.
Yeah.
By the way, that's how long ago that was. 9 years.
I know, dude. That was an Xbox One, I think, and PS4, like close to
2014.
Launch.
Yeah. I don't know. Someone else can look it up because I'm going to delay the show trying to type while I'm doing this here. Deck 13 Interactive is who did the Surge. It was,
and they're making Atlas
Fallen spiritual successor to Lords of the Fallen. Yes, they did Lords of the Fallen, and then they did Surge, but that is not the team. That's not the team developing this new Lords of the Fallen.
Deck 13, not to be confused with Hangar 13. We need some more numbers, people.
Correct.
What about Star Wars 1313?
Don't bring that up.
Yeah.
But Oh, go ahead.
But I was just going to say, that team got a lot better at it. So I would say that the legacy of Lords of the Fallen, at least, is that it spawned a team that eventually got really good at making games. And I think the fact that this is a separate team working on it, it's got to be same publisher, same circles. I'm sure that there's some commonalities there, but I think Lords of the Fallen is going to be a great game.
I know that because I did a preview on this, but it was a little bit ago now. But I know that they basically gave them, the team developing the new one, basically gave them budget and time just to continue working on this. They've been working on this for a long time. But when you start to look at the gameplay previews, you start to look at the trailers, I mean, it's showing, at least so far, obviously TBD on how the game plays and feels and is designed, but it looks very, very impressive. I am hugely hyped for it. Sadly, it comes out like 3 days apart from Forza, so that's going to be interesting for me personally, but that's just the story of this fall anyway.
And you said October, right? I mean, like
October 13th, I believe.
One problem that a lot of these kind of mid-range games have is it's like, okay, I am already just completely behind on playing the things I want to play, and I'm playing a game in Remnant, for instance, that I like, but has put enough of a roadblock in my way that I'm just like, let's move over back to the stuff that I like. And we got Baldur's Gate, we've got Starfield, and then in October we've got Alan Wake, we've got Spider-Man. We've got all sorts of stuff that it's like, I don't really have enough time or resources to go to that next level of game down.
Yeah, and I think that's probably fair, Hoeg. And I think it would probably be fair to say, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but it's not really aimed at you for that reason, right? I think the people that are the people like me, maybe Travis and others who really dig the Souls games, who really dug Elden Ring and anything in that kind of vein, are looking at this as the next game like that. And so because those games tend to offer something unique, I would say, in terms of the feel and how they play, it's like we make time for it even when there's other releases.
Are there too many Souls likes?
Yes.
Souls has very clearly inspired an awful lot of games. In fact, there was an award. It was named hilariously. I don't know if you guys saw this. This was a little while ago now, but some British publication gave an award titled like the greatest game of eternity all time, or it was like, some ridiculous name that sounded made up, but it was an award, and they awarded it to Dark Souls 1 because what they said is it has changed the industry and inspired so many different games to come from it now that it has changed the course for a lot of game development. So that was their
Your Honor,
Demon Souls.
Yeah.
Please, would you answer the question?
Why would you pick Dark Souls instead of Demon Souls?
Dark Souls, I think.
Demon Souls was not. Yeah, it is not the progenitor of the Souls-like genre. Because they didn't add so much and didn't get so much right with that game that I think wasn't until Dark Souls was their breakthrough game for a lot of people.
Yeah,
so.
I think what Hoeg's asking is, aren't the keep me honest here, Hoeg, but the tenets of Souls experience were created with Demon Souls, not necessarily Dark Souls. But what I would say to Travis's point is one of the key things about Dark Souls that it did over Demon Souls is Dark Souls has an interconnected world, right? Which Demon Souls does not. And that's a key feature of kind of those games. And Dark Souls had that kind of a cultural breakthrough that Demon Souls never did.
Yeah, I mean, I was a big Demon Souls fan, but it's sort of like being a fan of Borderlands 1, which was another one I was a fan of, which is you're playing it and you're like, I like the idea, but I get why this isn't going to be the big thing. And then when Borderlands 2 came out, you're like, oh damn. When Dark Souls came out, it was like, all right, so now they figured out the kinks, and now this is like a proper execution of those ideas. And so I think that's why it gets attributed a lot of the praise and credit.
Interesting.
I think it's deserving too. That game is phenomenal.
Well, and if they're lucky, and who knows, again, the quality of this game, who knows, it could look fantastic and play like crap. We don't really know. But I think since last year, with Elden Ring being the kind of cultural phenomenon that we saw in the sales, that it's what?
Will you answer the question?
I didn't hear you ask me a question. I'm sorry.
Are there too many Souls likes?
Too many? You'll never hear me say there's too many, but I do think it is. I think that too many games try to implement Souls-like mechanics that don't necessarily need to.
Okay, Dan, that's a little on the fence there. I'll take your no, but that's not a little on the fence. Dan, too many Souls likes?
Yeah, I think one is too many. So
great.
I'm good.
Hoeg, unhinged opinion as usual. Hoeg, too many?
Yes.
I'm gonna be on Hoeg's team here. I think there are too many. This is somebody who loves them, but like I feel like I've reviewed I mean, we got Lies of P also coming out. That's a Souls-like, right?
September. Yep.
Yeah, we got. It's just like there's a
Well,
lot.
and that's before getting
No.
to all the indie games. That tons of indie games are Souls-like.
I'm reviewing
knockoffs.
one right now. I mean, Blasphemous is it's a Metroidvania, but it's also kind of a Souls-like. It does a lot of the Souls-like stuff. So, yeah, it's weird.
Hmm.
There's too many.
It's inspired a lot of games, whether you like it or not. It's just it has. So I don't know. I think the biggest thing is not a lot of them do it what I would call well, right? And if you're gonna take those design tenets from Souls, you need to try and implement the game around that, not try to plug them into your game that wasn't designed to be a Souls game.
I like that Googleman asked, "How many are there?" in the comments.
None.
Dude, it is
Actually,
incalculable.
none.
I mean, you ask ChatGPT. I have no idea how many there are. There's a lot. There's hundreds at least. Yeah.
ChatGPT is going to get confused because of how many game reviews reference Souls.
That's probably true. That's probably
That'd
well.
be fun.
ChatGPT is going to get confused if you ask it a simple math problem. So I don't know if there's any way around that.
Yeah. On that note, not Souls-like, but you did mention Baldur's Gate coming, and that comes in just as we're recording here. What, 4 days? If
Yes,
you're
as
on
a
Steam?
service announcement, you will get all the deluxe stuff if you pre-order the game before it releases on August 3rd. So Larian said that a month ago. They re-upped it again this last week. So if you are interested in playing that game on the PC, you do get more bennies from buying it today and for the next day or two than you do if you buy it in 4 days.
Anybody know the embargo on reviews?
I don't
So
see a copy out.
I heard that from a PR rep a couple days ago that codes were coming in ultra late, and that some codes would not get sent out until tonight, Sunday night.
Ooh, well,
For a game that's going to be like massive.
So our reviewer has had it for a while, so I assume
Sure.
she's probably already got the review out, or it must be in draft.
Reviews are not out. I don't know what the embargo is now.
No, I'm sorry. I meant like, yeah, not publicly out, but I'm assuming that like she's done with the review would be my guess at this point.
Oh,
right?
yeah,
Like,
I think
they've got to be coming out soon, like ready to post, or the embargo's
probably. I would say probably Wednesday would be my guess, right? Day before release in this case. But we'll see. Yeah, I mean, obviously.
I'd like to agree with Shush, who says ChatGPT is useless because it doesn't even know who Travis is. It doesn't. You ask it who I am, it will not. It does not identify.
Probably gives you a more important Travis, to be fair.
Fun fact, though, Amazon's Alexa does know who I am, which is super weird. You can ask it, who's Travis Northup, and it'll be like, he's a writer at IGN. The first time I saw that, I was like, whoa, that's weird.
He reviews all of the worst games rleased over at IGN.
It doesn't say anything about me. It just goes, he's a reviewer for IGN. He lives in San Francisco. That's it. That's all it tells you about it.
If you have any complaints about a video game he reviewed, send them to his DMs.
Yeah, exactly. And ask him why the game is broken, apparently. That's something that people do. Oh boy, what a week!
But yeah, to Hoeg's point, as you're listening to this, if you're not with us in the chat live, and by the way, we've been over 300 people live for a while, so thank you all for hanging out with us. Yeah, you've got a couple days as you're listening to this. Bye, Dan. To pre-order before you get the deluxe edition. Dan,
I love that happens every week. He just dips.
We have been doing this show. Yeah. For like 5 years.
Right. Do you guys want to bet what his excuse is? My excuse is I hit the wrong button. What do you think? Let's take bets right now. He's not watching.
That's what he always says. I think.
I'm gonna add a wrinkle to it. I closed the tab.
Okay, close the tab. That's more specific. Hoeg.
I'm gonna go with you, Travis. He hit the wrong button.
Okay. Well, okay. So now it's been so long that I'm thinking maybe it was like a power outage or something. Could be.
It's literally bright and sunny with not a cloud in the sky here.
But I mean, power outages happen for different reasons. Oh, here we go.
Dan, what happened? Tell us specifically.
My dog.
Oh no! The dog.
Your dog did what?
List. He unplugged my router. Listen, I got a little sheepadoodle who's less than a year old. All right, he is a spaz. Man. All right, he's just like when you see him like for the first time like in the morning, all he does is like wiggle. He's a big wiggler. He doesn't. That's what he does. And like
we didn't go with my dog did it.
No,
yeah,
he
my
did.
dog did it.
No
I
one
didn't
guessed that.
expect that one.
No
Like,
one
what the
We
hell
were
was
taking
that?
guesses, Dan. We were
No, I
taking
have
guesses.
a-
taking guesses.
I've got the
no
little,
one guessed. Dog and
what are they
puppy
called? The
hour.
little pucks,
God
the
damn you,
extenders, or
Travis.
whatever. Yeah,
You were just
The
more
mesh,
creative.
popped it right out. The mesh, yeah, and
Nice.
it's hard lined into this thing. So, yep. Thanks, Loki.
I'm
Earning your
disappointed in
namesake.
myself that I didn't think of that. That was like it was
His
right
name's
there.
Loki too. Like, how
Yeah,
could we not think
go
of that?
figure.
That's
He's
terrible.
a trickster.
It's right here.
Yep.
This one.
All right. Well, now that Dan's back, we can talk about our final topic, which will be Twisted Metal the show. We told you we were going to come back to it.
Great.
It is out now, the whole season. It is on Peacock, if you're wondering for any reason. It's 10 episodes, and the episodes are half an hour episodes. They're not like hour-long ones.
No, is it only half hour? Does it just feel longer? I don't know.
Trust me. Yes. Yeah. It doesn't just feel longer. I am through 5. So I watched episode 5 this morning before the show. I wanted to watch more before the show so I could talk more about it. I have read, and this is almost like saying to Travis's point, play 100 hours and it gets good. I have read that the last episode is kind of good and ends on a thing, whatever. But I'm 5 episodes in, and my impression so far has been kind of curious. I could see if you don't care about writing, cinematography, acting to some degree, story, if you don't care about the core things that make a good movie and just want a show that will literally just be on the screen and you can watch and giggle occasionally, Twisted Metal will do it for you. It's there.
So you're saying if you have nothing better to do, put on Twisted Metal.
That's the much more concise way to say it. Yes.
It's entertaining. I mean, here's what I really didn't like about Last of Us is that you've already seen Last of Us. If you played Last of Us, Twisted Metal, because the game is much older, doesn't really reflect Twisted Metal, right? It's not a Twisted Metal tournament. They didn't take like the more movie version of what's happening. They made it a road trip. They didn't do a great job of hiding Calypso, but hey, what are you going to do? And so it's entertaining. It's goofy. I mean, one of the things that when the Game Awards clip happened that we talked about that episode was how kind of stupid it was. And I don't know that I recognize that that's the ethos of the show. It's stupid. The joke.
It's very goofy. Yeah, like it doesn't take itself seriously at all.
It leans on the 90s as
Big
the game when it released. So it uses a bunch of 90s songs. It has a bunch of reference points to it. It's really very silly, but for a entertainment landscape that is strewn with apocalypses that are very dour and the real monster is man and all this stuff, it is much closer to kind of the id Software version of the apocalypse or anything else. It's very colorful. It's very humor based. Nobody's taking it very seriously, even when they're in dire circumstances. And I think overall, you say the cinematography, if you're not interested in, I think it's well shot. I think it puts a pleasing image on screen fairly often, where your HBO shows tend to not be very well lit and tend to make you have to close all of your drapes and these various kinds of things. Twisted Metal is very bright. It's a comic book reflection of an apocalypse.
Yeah, that's probably fair.
I really do hate
fair way to say it.
This thing in TV and movies lately where they don't want it to look like it's a movie, so they don't want to properly light the environments or their characters. But like I just hate that. To me, it's like the suspension of disbelief of like how are they lit is pretty easy for me to get over. You know what I mean? Of like, okay, clearly there's a light on these guys' faces. It's supposed to be much darker, but you can accomplish that without making everything blue and gray and making it like weird and dark. And it's just like, what is the point of it? I feel like I'm not getting anything. I can just see the actors less well. I kind of hate that.
No,
anybody else? Am I howling at the wind?
No, one of the things I really like about Final Fantasy XVI is I think that their night cinematography is really well done. Obviously, that's a completely created frame, right? You don't have to go and put light probes everywhere. But there's a lot of games that don't do that well, that either have completely scenes that look like it's just blue, day for night type stuff, or you can't see it at all. Game of Thrones, Last of Us has that darkness problem. HBO in general has that darkness problem. Twisted Metal is just very, very colorful. It's like an old.
It is.
ABC
It's
show.
very. Yeah. It's like, what would you call it? It's like comedy gore. Like there's death and destruction and stuff going on, but they just make fun of it. And it's very goofy, to Hoeg's point. It's very lighthearted. There's a lot of one-liners and quips that almost feel out of place, and then you kind of giggle a little bit. I mean, I think it's probably fair saying it's entertaining, but it is stupid. Like,
it is stupid, but it is entertaining, right? And I was never entertained by The Last of Us.
I would say that in episode 5, which I just finished this morning, Sweet Tooth plays a bigger part, and he's starting to come into his own a little bit. I didn't really dig him at first as kind of this goofy. I think I said before, I did prefer in Sweet Tooth's case to be the darker kind of serial killer guy, but in this
one of the things that's really interesting about this project, I would offer, is that the easiest thing for them to have done was to take Twisted Metal Black, and they didn't do that. This is not Twisted Metal Black,
not at all.
And
no, it's not really Twisted Metal.
They take some of the characters. Well, I mean, it's got some of the vibes of like World Tour. It's not the same like structure, but it's got that kind of World Tour feeling. And yeah, you've got Calypso, you've got the notion of wish granting. But what's interesting about that is Twisted Metal was always kind of set up to even be a episodic show, to have you have different wishes and different grants and different flashbacks and backgrounds for characters that it could have been. The fact that they didn't do that, I think, is interesting. But I have been enjoying it more than I thought I would. But admittedly, I wouldn't tell anybody to go rush out and get it.
Yeah. Yeah. To be fair to what you said earlier, and this almost hurts my heart to say out loud, but I have been enjoying it more than Halo. And that's probably because obviously my expectations for Halo are much different than they are for Twisted Metal as a TV show. At least I can get a laugh and a smile out of this, and I don't have to take it too seriously.
He made Cortana watch him bang the bad guy, and then started the Fall of Reach.
They did.
But yeah, give it a look. I'm curious to see where it goes from here.
There are worse ways to spend your $5.
Yeah. Or I think wasn't Game Pass, or one of the perks was like 3 months of Peacock. I know there's some kind of deal out there to get Peacock for free for a couple months. So
there you go. Go to Xbox and get your Twisted Metal fix.
There you go. Perfect. So Travis, Dan, neither of you have watched any of it?
Nah. I have other things in my life I find fulfilling.
Yeah.
Like fighting cubes.
Making money, really, is what I'm up to.
Making money. We are allowed to just watch a TV show on Saturday and Sunday.
Making money.
Nope.
You live in San Francisco. You just throw it all away anyway. What's the point?
If I'm not getting a paycheck for watching it, nah, I'm not going to do it.
See,
I'll write about it.
This is why I could never be like a professional reviewer of media. Like, you just feel guilty about watching something and not getting the paycheck at the end.
Yeah. Well, no, it's more like when you watch something, you think like, oh, how could I make money off of this? I could pitch a story about it, right? So I would watch Twisted Metal if I had like an angle in my mind of like how I could turn it into news or an article or opinion. But
a brief description of Anthony Mackie's career.
Yeah, honestly. There you go.
Yeah, I did. Watching him in this is definitely interesting because he is part of what makes it over the top goofy. Yeah, it's kind of funny, but. All right. Well, let us know what you think. We'll talk more about it next week. By the way, let's close this poll out. So the poll that we took, do you enjoy games putting in secrets that require community involvement to solve? 44% yes, 56% no. So damn near down the middle split. So thank you all for voting.
That is with a advanced in age audience. Keep in mind, most seasoned gaming viewers are the elderly.
Let me see your data, sir.
I have the data. It is 60% elderly, meaning more than 65 years old, and then 40% pets whose owners have died. That's the season gaming pie chart of viewers. Yeah, that's it.
Travis's views do not represent the views of the streaming gaming Bitcast. You're gonna get the chat to start giving us their ages here.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. Oh man. All right, guys. It's been a fun show. Chad, thank you as always for hanging out with us. Appreciate you spending time with us. On the Season Gaming side, Seasoned Gaming side, I did have that new Dark Souls statue come in. It's ridiculous. There's 3 giant boxes sitting over there. I'll do a video on that this week. And like I said last week, we didn't record this past week, but Cast Co-op, me, Joe, and Luke should be back this upcoming week as well. And like I mentioned, a lot of good response on my video review of the Maxwell headset as well. So thank you for that. Appreciate it. Other than that, Travis, what you got?
Yeah, I've got some reviews coming up. I've got a preview of a game I'm super excited to talk about on August 2nd that I've been playing for over a month and have not been able to talk about at all. So August 2nd, I'll have some stuff to talk about. Other than that, you should look at my previews of Leica. I've done a bunch of previews this week. I'm probably forgetting them. I'm sorry. And then my review of Remnant 2. If you're interested in that game, I do recommend you play it. You don't have to have played the first one. It's good. You'll fight cubes, apparently. If you're a Hoeg, that you'll hate that. If you're me, you'll love it. So give it a shot if it sounds like it's up your alley.
Are you more of a Hoeg or a Travis?
More of a Hoeg or more of a Travis? That's
in your entire world.
Those are really 2 extremes, aren't they? Like, I think most people are like, God, I hope I'm not anywhere near those 2. I want to be somewhere in the middle. So yeah, and then I've got a bunch of stuff coming up this week. So follow me on Twitter if you want to take a look at it. And then also my Destiny fam, it is GCX this week, which for those who don't know is Guardian Con. It is the Destiny specific convention that happens in Florida every year. I'm not going this year because I have stuff to work on, but I will be there in spirit, and I'm excited to see photos of Lord Cognito and Ebontis being enormous meat boxes and hugging each other. I assume we will be getting lots of photos of that, so that'll be great.
Is that the one where you guys had the little Travis head that popped up?
Yeah,
behind those 2 guys. Yeah, I still have that on my phone.
Yeah, the little Travis face. I'm very sad I won't be able to photobomb this year. That is really the big loss on my end because I love doing it.
Love it.
Oh man, that's cool. We got a late super chat from Mr. Lunch Bizzle, one of our SG OGs, man. Yeah, Bizzle.
Yeah. Good to be able to catch you guys live. Great show as always. Possible new jobs, so hopefully be able to be here more often. All right, Bizzle.
Awesome. Congrats. Yeah, he's been working towards getting into new kind of job alignment for a while, so that's great news, man.
Possible congrats.
Yeah, possible congrats. But
nice. Still has the best beard in the community.
He sure does. He's got that Jason Ronald type beard. Yeah, huge. No doubt.
Love it.
Is that where he keeps his lunch bizzle?
Yeah.
His beard?
Yep.
I got nothing for that. I got nothing.
Lunch bizzle sounds like leftover lunch crumbs, lunch bizzle.
Bizzle, thank you, brother. Appreciate it. Hoeg, what you got happening?
Well, we'll probably be doing a virtual legality pretty soon. We haven't done one since the Microsoft opinion came out, and I want to do some more videos there. I did do a video with the Defining Duke guys and with the main group at Last Stand Media, which you can check out on their Patreon, where we talked about Final Fantasy XVI. So if you want to hear me apparently be overly negative, depending on which commenters you read, you can come watch that. But I really like Final Fantasy XVI. So it's news to me. You can watch that spoiler cast. That went really well. And otherwise, I'm around. I'm online. I'm on Twitter. You can get my takes on such wonderful things as Oppenheimer and Christopher Nolan. And that's at HoegLaw on X now on Twitter, wherever you find yourself.
No, it's Twitter. We're not doing that. We're not doing that. No X.
It is objectively X now.
Shut up, Travis. No one cares.
The building. It's.
Hey,
and by the way, if you want,
do you live across the street from that giant flashing X?
I can see the flashing X from.
He lives across the street from a giant flashing X. Not that one.
There's 2 other X's next to it.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. It's the Gold Club. That's what I call that one. The lunch.
So you can find Travis at the Gold Club, and you can find Hoeg on the Remnant 2 Reddit message board if you need to find him online.
That's where we're most well known for being.
I'm going to do some data mining.
Yep.
And by the way,
starting the Christopher Nolan fan club next week, so shout out to that kind of thing.
And by the way, hosting his JRPG podcast.
Yeah, JRPG analysis of yes. We forgot, all of us forgot until just now. So I'm glad I remembered before the show was over that we ended last week with Tao giving us a super chat as I was hitting the outro button. So I can't bring it up on the screen because obviously it's from last week. But big shout out to Tao, who gave us a $10 super chat, who simply said we need more silly Bitcast episodes because last week we went off the rails a lot last week.
Look, we did it accidentally.
Yeah, it happens. It happens. So Tao, shout out to you. I did not forget, thankfully, right here at the tail end of the show. But
I do want to get in the habit of when we have less busy run of shows, to ask you guys like a personal question, because I think I did that like 2 shows in a row and it resulted in everybody having hilarious answers because none of us are normal people. And I kind of find that I would love to do more of that. That was insightful seeing what gremlins y'all are.
Well, we got Travis's sartorial corner. We'll add Hoeg's haberdashery next week. It'll be great.
Yeah, I'm down for that, of course. Especially considering the 4 of us have all kinds of different stories and histories. So
that's right.
Yeah, that could be fun.
Some of us have no history at all. Well, I won't spoil which.
Travis just thinks we're all old.
I think some people's are old with their opinions more than their physical body.
Yes, I know. You think I stand athwart history. I get it.
Certainly. I do appreciate your takes, and I do think it's an important perspective. I actually value old people quite a bit, but I do think that sometimes
it's the greatest generation.
Sometimes they do get in their own way and get in the way of progress, but that's part of their role. Importantly, anyway, I don't mean to get too wax philosophic here.
Yeah,
but,
it's fun. It's fun. We all know Gen Xers are the best, right?
I'll just say this. I'll say this. I know my role on this panel. Right? I know the role I have to play on this panel because I tend to be adversarial in general. I don't like authority. I don't like people getting to say things and unopposed. It's just, it's not my nature. So, yeah, that's me.
You good?
I'm good.
Okay. And with that, we shall end the show. Thank you as always for hanging out with us. If you're an audio listener, thanks for spending some time with us. We will be back next week, of course, to talk Baldur's Gate 3 will finally be here after 3 years of early access, along with whatever news pops this week. So enjoy your gaming this week, and we will see you next Sunday. Until then.